So, is this really how it ends? Cold seawater hit her lungs like fire. She was sinking into the dark Mediterranean. Aria Ellis was 25, a psychologist in Detroit, and she had never made the biggest decisions of her life in dramatic moments. She was logical, controlled, the kind people relied on, the kind they always said, "You've got this." That's why she came to Scario, Italy, with a clean plan. Sell the house her mother left her, stay only a few days, go back home, and use the money to open her own clinic, until Sebastian Bianco stepped into her life, the heir to a Sicilian crime family. And now, 2 weeks later, that night, sinking into the Black Sea, logic didn't matter anymore. All that existed in her mind were Sebastian Bianco's eyes, his touch, and one brutal question she couldn't stop asking: is he safe? For the first time in her life, she had let go of control. For the first time, she had chosen with her heart. And, as the dark water closed over her, she thought about the life that might be ending. The most exciting thing about life? The unexpected. When Aria Ellis stepped off the train in Scario, exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. The flight from Detroit to Rome, then the rattling train ride south, all of it blurred together now as she stood in front of her mother's house for the first time. The stone house sat above the sea, crumbling. Faded shutters, missing tiles, weeds choking the path. She tucked auburn hair behind her ear and tried not to let the disappointment show. Rico Alfonsi, the real estate agent, scratched his jaw. "Signora Venti, if you want to sell now, maybe 600,000 euros. "Venti is my mother's surname," Aria corrected quietly. "I'm Aria Ellis." Rico nodded quickly. "Ah, scusi. Signora Ellis." He raised a finger. "But rent it out for 2 months. Use the money to fix everything. Then sell for 2 million, maybe more." Her shoulders sagged as she calculated. 2 months of rental income would cover the repairs. She could stay in the guest house, no hotel costs, then sell, and finally open her own practice back home. She could make it work. The motel room smelled like bleach. Aria sat cross-legged on the bed, Jennifer's face filling the laptop screen. "I think I'm going to rent it out, Jen." Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. "Rent it out? You don't have money for repairs." Aria leaned forward, trying to make her friend understand. "I know, but if I rent it out for 2 months, I'll have enough. I can stay in the guest house for free while it's rented. Then I sell." Jennifer's expression shifted to concern. "What about your clients?" Her jaw clenched. "You know I'm never going back to work with Dr. Reynolds. I can see clients online from here." Jennifer leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping. "Aria, are you safe there? You don't know anyone." She glanced out the window at the narrow street below. "It's cute. Maybe I have family here somewhere." The look on Jennifer's face said she wasn't convinced. Aria wasn't either. The phone rang at 7:47 a.m., jerking her from shallow sleep. Her heart hammered as she grabbed it. "Signora Ellis, come now. I have tenant for 2 months." Aria moved fast, throwing on the first dress she could find, slipping into sandals, grabbing her keys. Her pulse throbbed in her throat as she ran through narrow cobblestone streets. Yesterday, she'd been too tired to even look at the house properly. Now she was about to hand keys to a complete stranger. The iron gate stood open. Aria stepped into the overgrown garden, wild grass overtaking the stone path. She moved quickly. Her foot caught. The world tilted. Her stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables, time slowing as the ground rushed up. Just as she was about to hit the ground, strong arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back. Her body went alert before her mind caught up, a gasp escaping as her palms landed against something solid. Heat radiated through expensive fabric, his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her touch. Her own pulse answered, hammering in her throat, her wrists between her thighs. Electricity sparked where his hands pressed into her waist. She looked down, polished leather shoes, expensive ones, and tailored linen pants with a gold buckle. Her gaze climbed. Light green eyes locked onto hers, sharp and unreadable, holding her there. For a moment, something passed between them, his gaze taking in her face, the hazel eyes looking up at him, her uneven breath. Neatly trimmed beard, medium-length hair styled perfectly. Heat bloomed low in her belly. Her skin felt too tight where his hands still rested. At 5 feet 5 inches she felt small, delicate, acutely aware of how easily he'd caught her. He said something in Italian, voice low and smooth. "No Italiano," she managed, breathless. Shame crawled up her neck. Her mother had been Italian, and she should have learned the language but never had. His expression shifted to something like amusement as he studied her face. American? His English was flawless, barely accented. She stepped back, needing space and air between them. His gaze dropped to the house behind her, then returned to her face. "The house? Are you the owner?" Her voice steadied as she smoothed her wrinkled dress. "Yes, I am." Rico jogged up, out of breath. "Signora Ellis, you've met my client." The man's gaze traveled from Rico to Arya, slow and deliberate, assessing her with those unreadable green eyes. "I hear you want to stay in the guest house. If I rent this house, I don't want anyone else here." Her spine went rigid at the audacity. She opened her mouth. Movement from the house stopped her. 2 men emerged from the house, massive, broad-shouldered, with muscle their suits couldn't hide. Her nervous system answered before logic could. Her pulse kicked up. The thought formed unbidden. Mafia. Was that what this was? She was in Italy, after all. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "I don't rent to people without families." A faint smile played at his lips, amused by her attempt at control. "What makes you think I don't have family?" He gestured toward the 2 men with lazy, controlled confidence. "They're my family." She forced a smile. "I think you understand what I meant." Rico leaned close, whispering, "Signora Ellis, Signor Bianco likes the house. 2 months. He's serious." He paused. "And he's offering 80,000 euros. The number hit like cold water. 80,000 euros for 2 months? She looked at him. Those cold green eyes that saw through everything. The arrogant posture, the gold ring, the 2 enforcers flanking him. That tailored suit made for his body alone. The most handsome man she'd ever seen. And she hated everything about him. Her answer came out clear and final. "No, I'm not accepting." Sebastian Bianco had been looking at the sea, at cliffs dropping into nothing. He turned his head slowly, his eyes found hers, one eyebrow lifted with intrigue. "So," he said quietly, "you're not accepting." Rico stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Signora Ellis, can we talk privately for a moment?" Rico led her several steps away from the men. He leaned in, speaking quickly, his nervousness showing. "Listen, no family would pay 80,000 euros for 2 months in a house that's falling apart. I can find you a room somewhere while this gets sorted out. Or we could offer to sell it to him outright. He might go as high as 600,000. Arya's jaw tightened. "No, I won't sell at that price." She glanced toward the 3 men standing near the garden, deep in conversation. Sebastian Bianco stood with his attention fixed on the small stone dock jutting into the sea. His bodyguard Vince shifted beside him. "Boss, we could look at other properties." "This one's in rough shape." Sebastian kept his eyes on the dock. "No, Vince, this is the one I want. A place no one will think to look for me. A hidden cove." He paused. "And that stone dock, it could come in handy in an emergency. Plus the Venti house. There's more to this place than you realize." Then his gaze shifted to Arya, walking toward them with her head high and shoulders squared. His lips curved slightly. "Besides, I like her." Arya stopped in front of him and lifted her chin. "I'm sorry, but I can't accept your offer." Sebastian didn't even blink. 200,000 euros. 2 months, and I'll renovate the interior of the house. Arya's breath caught. 200,000? Why would he offer that much? Sebastian's gaze moved slowly down and back up, a mocking smile playing at his mouth. "I want this house, and I usually get what I want." Arya swallowed hard. That kind of money would let her do the renovations properly and sell for maybe 3 million. Still, she held his gaze without backing down. "I'm staying in the guest house." Sebastian tilted his head. "Fine, the guest house is far enough from the main house. I'm moving in today." The realtor grinned, relief flooding his features. "Wonderful. Let's get the contract signed." At the real estate office, they signed the rental agreement side by side. As Arya scanned the paperwork, her eyes caught Sebastian's date of birth on the form, 37, born in Sicily. She glanced up and caught him reading her information too. She looked away quickly. He didn't. When she risked another glance, he was still watching her, one eyebrow raised, that faint smile playing at his lips. Arya looked back down at the papers, her jaw tightening. This man is so audacious, she thought. He gets under my skin. That day, Arya walked through the town. Scario wasn't as polished as other resort towns, but it had its own character, turquoise sea, local architecture, incredible air. She went to the town hall and asked about anyone with the last name Venti, her mother's maiden name. There weren't many people with that name, but she found one family and got their address. She'd visit them once she got settled. Late afternoon, she went to check on the house. From outside the gate, she saw 7 or 8 men working frantically on both the main house and her guest house. Surprise flickered through her. He's actually fixing the place, she thought, still arrogant and audacious, but at least he keeps his word. Inside the guest house, Sebastian stood with 2 of his men, Vince and Luigi. Put cameras here, Vince. Install a mechanism on that stone dock for securing the boat, cameras outside the house too. We need to be ready for any attack, no matter how small. Luigi shifted his weight. Boss, the Lambertis don't even know you're alive yet. It'll take them at least a few weeks to find us. Sebastian's voice went cold. I don't leave anything to chance, Luigi. We'll be strong enough to wipe them out of Sicily fast, but we need to be ready for any trouble. Vince cleared his throat. What about the girl, boss? She wasn't in the plan. Did you even know she existed? Sebastian smiled slowly, deliberately. For now? She's harmless. That faint curve of his lips deepened. She might even be useful. Good cover. She adds some color to the situation. He paused, his gaze distant and calculating. I have plans for her. If she becomes a problem, we'll handle it. The next day, Arya arrived at the guest house with her suitcase. Inside, everything was clean. A small kitchen, a bedroom with a door opening to the sea and stone steps leading down to the broken dock, and a bathroom. 2 months in this place, she thought, setting her bag down. Through the door facing the water, she saw 2 men working near the dock, planting colorful flowers along the path to the sea. Arya stepped outside. What are you doing? One of the men straightened. Boss said to make it beautiful. She blinked. Who's he doing this for? Arya tried to settle into the tiny space. She didn't have much, just a suitcase and her laptop. The first night felt strange. Quiet. Through the window she could see the main stone house, dim lights glowing inside. She knew they were there, Vince, Luigi, Sebastian. Was she supposed to feel safer with them around, or more terrified? She was thousands of miles from home, in another country, renting her own house to a man who might be dangerous. Smart? Probably not. Her thoughts tangled as she lay down. Sleep came slowly. Morning light woke her. Arya stepped outside to the water's edge. The view was stunning, the Mediterranean stretching endlessly under pale blue sky. Her mother had grown up in this house before marrying and moving to America. Arya tried to picture her here, young, barefoot on these stones. But her mother had never talked about Scario, never mentioned this house, never explained why she left. Arya glanced up at the main house. On the second-floor balcony, she saw him. Sebastian. Shirtless, bare-chested, hitting a punching bag hanging from the ceiling. His body was all muscle, sharp lines and controlled power, hard and dangerous. As if sensing her gaze, Sebastian looked down. He raised his hand in a casual wave, cool and confident. Heat crawled up Arya's neck. She whipped her head away. Not my type at all, she told herself firmly. Stay away from him. A few days passed. Arya found her rhythm. Online therapy sessions in the morning, sunbathing in the afternoon, occasional walks through town. She wasn't particularly social, hadn't made friends yet. That was fine. She preferred quiet. One afternoon, while she was on a video call with a client, loud banging echoed from the dock, hammering and drilling. She finished the session and walked outside. 2 men were installing some kind of metal mechanism on the stone dock. Arya's pulse kicked up. Excuse me, you're making a lot of noise. What is that thing you're putting in? Do you have a boat? Because I don't want a boat docked in front of my guest house. Luigi looked up, his expression flat. Signorina, if the boss says we do it, we do it. Don't ask so many questions. A few hours later, Arya noticed the main house was silent. No movement. She'd seen the men leave earlier. The house looked empty. She stood at the gate, staring at the front door, trying to convince herself. It was still her mother's house, technically hers, and what harm could one quick look do? She walked up the stone path, pushed the door open slowly. Sebastian had cleaned it, but there wasn't much furniture. The space felt hollow, waiting. At the top of the staircase, she saw it. A painting. Her mother's family, she guessed, and there, in the center, a young girl with auburn hair and hazel eyes. Her mother, younger than Arya had ever seen her, maybe 15, standing with people who must have been her family. Sebastian hadn't thrown it away. Arya hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, then climbed a few steps to get a better look. Then she heard footsteps. Her stomach dropped. She turned. Sebastian stood at the top of the stairs, completely naked, water still dripping from his hair, sliding in slow rivulets down his neck, his chest, disappearing into the white towel he held loosely in one hand, not tied yet, just held. His skin glistened in the dim light, every muscle defined and carved. Her eyes caught on the water, trailing down the hard planes of his stomach before she could stop herself, and heat slammed into her face. Her breath tangled in her throat. She couldn't move, couldn't look away, couldn't breathe properly. He didn't hurry or cover himself, just stood there watching her watch him, that faint curve at the corner of his mouth, like he knew exactly what he was doing to her. Then, slowly, he wrapped the towel around his waist and tied it, casual and unhurried. She spun around instantly, face burning. I thought... Sebastian took his time tying the towel, unhurried, like he had all day. Why'd you walk into my house? His voice was cold and sharp. Arya kept her back to him. This is my house. She heard him move closer. Then his hand closed around her wrist, not rough, but firm and unmistakable. As long as I'm paying for it, it's mine. Arya's face went red. Her spine went rigid. She tried to pull away. He didn't let go. Let me go. If you're going to walk into my house uninvited, Sebastian said quietly, then you're making me coffee. We're practically neighbors. Might as well know each other. No, we don't need to. But he still held her wrist. He raised one eyebrow, waiting. Unease settled in her chest. She didn't know this man. Didn't know what he was capable of. Sebastian released her wrist. Arya didn't wait. She bolted down the stairs and out the door, nearly running back to the guest house. What were you thinking going in there? She slammed the door behind her, heart hammering, pulled her hair into a ponytail, changed her clothes. She needed to leave. Get out. Go somewhere public. She grabbed her bag and opened the door. Sebastian stood in front of her, white linen shirt, camel-colored linen pants, hair still damp and tousled by the wind. He smelled like the sea, clean and salt, with something darker underneath. Were you leaving without making me that coffee? He stepped inside without waiting for permission. Arya took 3 steps back. Her body went alert before her mind caught up. Sebastian looked around the small space with curious eyes. Small, but cute. He leaned in slightly, his gaze dropping to her neck, her collarbone. Smells nice too. Arya's pulse throbbed in her throat. This man was too close, too confident, too everything. She hated that he was this attractive, hated that her body responded to it, even as every instinct told her to run. Sebastian walked to the kitchen counter, frowning. Wait, is that thing a coffee maker? He looked genuinely horrified. You Americans! How do you drink that mud? Don't tell me you don't have a mocha pot. My coffee is fine. He pulled out his phone, already dialing. Luigi, bring me a mocha pot and fresh espresso. Now. He didn't take his eyes off Arya while he spoke. She rolled her eyes. I was actually leaving. Sebastian pocketed his phone and rolled up his sleeves. Before Arya could stop him, he grabbed the small 2-person table from the kitchen and carried it outside to the stone dock. Then the chairs. He sat down, leaning back, tilting his face toward the sun. Arya followed him outside, standing beside the table, unsure what to do with herself. When Sebastian turned his head toward her, sunlight caught in his eyes. Green, impossibly green, like sea glass held up to the light. She stared, unable to stop herself. Those eyes were the most beautiful she'd ever seen. Luigi appeared at the edge of the dock, carrying a mocha pot and 2 small cups. He set them on the table without a word and left quickly, his footsteps fading down the stone path. Sebastian picked up the pot, poured dark espresso into both cups. The rich smell hit her immediately, stronger than anything she made in her machine. He slid one cup across the table. Arya sat down across from him, her chair scraping against stone. She wrapped her fingers around the small cup, the warmth seeping into her palms. "Why are you guys staying here for 2 months?" Sebastian's smile spread slowly across his face, dark and dangerous. Vacation. The word didn't match the look in his eyes. Arya wrapped her fingers around the small cup, the warmth seeping into her palms. "Where are you from?" "Rome." Sebastian leaned back in his chair, casual, but his gaze stayed sharp. Then he shifted forward slightly, his body angling toward her. "Why are you so far from home, Bella?" Arya's mind flickered back to the paperwork. The form had said Sicily, so why was he claiming Rome now? Arya's grip tightened on the cup. "This house was my mother's. She left it to me. I'm fixing it up, then selling it. Thought I'd spend the summer here." Sebastian lifted his cup, his eyes never leaving hers. "So the painting upstairs, that's your family? The Ventis?" Warmth spread across her face. "How do you know that?" He took a slow sip, then set the cup down, his attention drifting toward the sea. "I looked into who owned the house." Ice water flooded her veins. He'd researched her family, but she knew nothing about him. Sebastian drained the last of his espresso and set the cup down with a soft click. He looked at her, really looked at her, something shifting behind those green eyes. "That's coffee, Arya." Her name. He'd said her name. First time. The way it rolled off his tongue, vowels stretched and softened by that Italian accent, did something she didn't want to admit. Her pulse kicked up beneath her skin. She hated that she liked how it sounded. Sebastian stood, pushing his chair back. He smiled, but his expression stayed serious and hard. "Don't walk into my house again, Bella." He took a few steps toward the guest house door, her voice caught in her throat. The name slipped out before she could stop it. Sebastian. The formal distance she'd been keeping between them just shifted. She'd used his first name without thinking. He stopped, turned his head back toward her, and something shifted in his expression, half surprise, half something warmer. That faint curve returned to his mouth. She gestured toward the water. "I don't want a boat in front of my guest house." Sebastian's smile widened. Then he walked out, leaving her sitting there with an empty espresso cup and the lingering scent of the sea. Arya went to the town hall later that afternoon. The clerk behind the desk looked up when she approached, his expression neutral. She leaned against the counter, trying to sound casual. "I'm looking for information on anyone with the last name Venti." The clerk stared at her, hard. "Why are you asking?" She met his gaze without flinching. "Because I'm a Venti." The man stood abruptly, walked to an office in the back. She saw him lean close to another man's ear, whispering. The other man, older, wearing glasses, bent forward and looked directly at Arya. He nodded once. The clerk returned, wrote something on a piece of paper, and slid it across the counter. An address. "There's only one family left." Arya took the paper, her hand trembling slightly. Just one family. That's all that remained. The house was small, painted pale yellow, shutters faded by sun and salt air. Arya knocked. A young woman opened the door, maybe a few years older than Arya, with long wavy hair and warm brown eyes, beautiful in an effortless way. Arya took a breath. "Hi, I'm—" She started, then stopped, suddenly unsure. "I think we might be distant cousins. I'm Elora Venti's daughter." The woman's eyes went wide, her mouth opened slightly, processing. "Oh, Elora Venti. She was my great-uncle's daughter, the one who owned the stone house by the water." She stepped forward and pulled Arya into a hug without hesitation. "I'm Margarita." 15 minutes later, they were sitting in Margarita's back garden, small glasses of limoncello between them. Margarita pressed forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "I have an American cousin and a psychologist. This is amazing. I have to show you around. This weekend we're going out. You're here for 2 months, right? Let's make them count." Arya found herself genuinely liking Margarita. Walking back later, she caught herself hoping this summer might actually turn out well, especially with this warm, cheerful woman around. When Arya got back to the guest house, she noticed them immediately. Cameras, small, black, mounted on the corners of the main house, angled toward the garden, toward the dock, toward her guest house. Pressure built in her chest. She pulled out her phone, stared at it for a moment, then dialed. The man renting my house. Who is he exactly? Rico's voice came back cautious. A wealthy businessman. Why? Her eyes went back to the cameras. What kind of business? I don't know, Signora. He paid cash, that's all I know. Aria hung up. She stepped outside, her eyes moving from the colourful flowers planted along the dock path to the cameras mounted on the corners of the house. She stared at them for a long moment. Who are you, Sebastian Bianco? She murmured to herself. If you're that rich, why rent my house? Why put cameras all over the garden? Out on the water, a small boat cut through the waves toward the stone dock. Sebastian sat at the front, Vince at the helm. The engine hummed low, steady. Sebastian kept his eyes on the approaching cliffs. Tell my cousin Diego I'm here, Sebastian said, his voice carrying over the sound of the water. Vince looked at him. You sure, boss? What if Diego's the one who turned? Sebastian smiled, slow and cold. I'm hoping he is. Vince's hands tightened on the wheel. And if the Lambertis send someone? Sebastian's attention never wavered from the approaching shoreline, from the stone house rising against the cliffs. Then we'll be ready. The sun hung low over the water, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Aria had made herself dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and vegetables, and opened a bottle of wine she'd bought in town. She sat at the small table Sebastian had placed by the dock, her bare feet resting on the weathered stone, the glass cool in her hand. The sea stretched out before her, endless and calm. For the first time since arriving, she felt something close to peace. The low hum of an engine cut through the silence. A small boat cut through the water toward her dock, growing larger with each passing second. Fury burned hot behind her ribs. I told him I didn't want a boat here. The boat pulled alongside the dock, rocking gently against the stone. Vince killed the engine. Sebastian stepped out first, his movements easy, confident, like he owned the place. He did, at least for the next 2 months, but that didn't give him the right to ignore her. Aria stood, her chair scraping against stone. She moved toward the edge of the dock, her arms crossed tight across her chest. Sebastian walked toward her with that same self-assured stride, his white linen shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked like he'd just stepped off a yacht in Monaco, not some rental house in a quiet coastal town. I said I didn't want a boat in front of my guest house. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. Sebastian didn't answer. Instead, he walked past her, straight to the table and picked up her wine glass. He lifted it to his lips and took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. Then he set it down and picked up the bottle, turning it in his hand to read the label. His mouth curved into a smirk. Someone needs to teach you about wine, Aria. His voice was casual, almost teasing. This is too dry. You'd like something with more fruit, maybe a hint of smoke. Fire crawled up her face. Are you seriously ignoring me right now? Sebastian set the bottle down and studied her, his gaze moving over every detail of her frustration. I'll take you out on the boat sometime. There are beautiful coves around here you should see. Then he turned and walked toward the guest house door, like the conversation was over. Aria's nails dug crescents into her palms. You arrogant, self-absorbed... But he was already gone. Disappearing around the side of the guest house, Vince trailing behind him. She stood there, her blood pounding in her ears, her hands trembling with the effort of not throwing something. Narcissist, that's what he was. A smug, insufferable narcissist who thought the world revolved around him. Inside the main house, Sebastian climbed the stairs to the second floor. He walked down the hallway to the last room on the right, the one he'd converted the first day. The door clicked shut behind him. The room was small, functional, no furniture except a desk and chair. But the walls were lined with monitors, 6 of them, each one displaying a different camera feed, the garden, the dock, the front gate, the driveway, and the guest house. Sebastian pulled the chair out and sat, his eyes moving across the screens. Most of them showed nothing. Static scenes, empty spaces. Then his gaze landed on the bottom right monitor. Aria. She was in the bathroom. The camera angle wasn't perfect, positioned too high to see much, but he could make out enough. She leaned over the old clawfoot tub, turning the faucet. Water poured in, steam rising. She straightened, reached behind her back, and pulled her shirt over her head. Sebastian went still. She stepped out of her pants, her movements slow, unaware. Then she climbed into the tub and sank beneath the water, her head tilting back against the porcelain edge. His mouth curved as he murmured, "Interesting." He reached forward and adjusted the angle slightly, though it didn't reveal much more. It didn't matter. He'd seen enough. His voice came out quiet, almost to himself. "You're getting under my skin, Arya Ellis Venti." He tapped his fingers against the desk, his eyes still fixed on the screen. "And you have no idea who your family really is, have you?" The next morning, Arya sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced on her knees, her third client of the day on screen. When the session ended, she reached for her notebook. Patient avoids eye contact when discussing control, uses humor as displacement, strong fear of abandonment masked by competence. Arya paused, tapping the pen against her lips. Her gaze drifted to the window, to the endless stretch of blue beyond. She wasn't thinking about her patient anymore. She was thinking about him, the way he'd picked up her wineglass without asking, the way he'd looked at her like he already knew what she was going to say before she said it, the way he'd walked away mid-conversation like her words didn't matter. She flipped to a new page in her notebook. Her hand moved almost on its own, writing in bold letters at the top. Sebastian Bianco. Then, underneath, maintains constant control of physical space, uses proximity and touch to dominate when emotionally challenged, avoids verbal vulnerability. She stared at the words, her pen hovering over the page. What the hell was she doing? This wasn't professional. This was... A knock at the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Arya set the notebook aside and crossed to the door. Margarita stood on the other side, holding a tin of biscotti, her smile bright and warm. "Surprise visit. I thought you might want company." Before Arya could answer, the main house door opened. Sebastian stepped out with Vince and Luigi, wearing dark jeans and a fitted black shirt. They walked past the guest house toward the gate. Margarita turned. "Wow, who is that?" Nausea swirled in Arya's gut. "My tenant, Sebastian." Sebastian must have heard his name. He stopped, turned, and walked toward them with that same easy confidence. He said something in Italian, his voice warm, his smile wider than Arya had ever seen it. Margarita responded in rapid Italian, her hand lifting to tuck hair behind her ear. Sebastian said something else, and Margarita's laugh came bright and musical. Arya stood there, arms wrapped around herself, watching them. She didn't understand a word they were saying, but she understood the body language, the way Margarita angled toward him, the way Sebastian's eyes stayed on her face, the way his smile came so easily. Her hand moved to the back of her neck, fingers twisting in her hair. She caught herself and dropped her hand immediately, but the damage was done. Tension corded her neck and shoulders, sharp and uncomfortable. Was he flirting with her? Why was he being so warm, so friendly? Pressure built behind her eyes. Am I jealous? No. That's ridiculous. Why would I be jealous? Sebastian's gaze shifted just for a second, landing on Arya. His eyes dropped to where her hand had been, to the way she was standing, weight shifted to one hip. His expression changed, amusement mixed with satisfaction. He knows. He turned back to Margarita, said something in English this time. "We should do this again sometime." Margarita beamed. "I'd love that." Sebastian nodded once, then walked away, Vince and Luigi following. Arya watched him go, anxiety buzzing under her skin. Margarita turned back to her, practically glowing. "He's incredible. You didn't tell me he was that attractive." Arya forced a smile. "Hadn't noticed." 20 minutes later, they were sitting by the water, small glasses of limoncello between them, the afternoon sun warm on their skin. Margarita took a sip, then set her glass down, her expression shifting. "I came here once, as a kid, to this house." Arya looked up. "You did?" Margarita nodded slowly. "It scared us. My father used to say my great-uncle Mattia Venti was a dangerous man." She paused, watching Arya carefully. Arya blinked. "Oh, I don't know anything about the family." Margarita studied her. "Why don't you know anything about your mother's family? Didn't she ever talk about them?" Arya shook her head. "Never. We never even came here?" Margarita's gaze softened. "The story I heard was that your mother fell in love with an American and ran away. My great-uncle Mattia wanted her to marry into a Sicilian family. She refused. So she left." She paused. "Mattia had connections in Sicily, dangerous ones. My father was terrified of him. Arya's breath caught. What happened to them? To my mother's family? Margarita's expression turned cautious. I don't know the whole story. No one talks about it. Every time someone brings it up, the conversation stops. Arya nodded, her thoughts racing. What about your parents? Where are they? Margarita's smile faded. Car accident when I was little. My brother raised me. He's in Rome now. Always said the Venti name was cursed, wanted to get far away and start over. She looked out at the water. But I love it here. Been on my own 4 years now. She turned back to Arya. I want to meet a handsome Italian and settle down. Her eyes sparkled. Your tenant. He's really attractive. Are you interested? Arya's response came too quickly. Absolutely not. He's not my type, Margarita. The kind of man you stay away from. Margarita's laugh was knowing. Oh, Arya, men like that are passionate. We don't have many around here. She shifted closer. If you're not interested, someone else will be. Trust me. Arya smiled, but the image of Margarita and Sebastian together made unease settle in her stomach. That afternoon, Arya sat through another session. A woman in her 40s, careful makeup, expensive ring still on her finger despite everything she was confessing. She'd been cheating on her husband for 6 months, the man she described as kind but passive. The affair partner. Demanding, controlling. She couldn't decide whether to leave. When the screen went dark, Arya reached for her notebook. Patient reports infidelity while describing husband as kind but passive. Ambivalence about separation persists. Sexual attraction appears linked to perceived strength rather than emotional safety. Power substitutes desire. Stability alone does not sustain attachment. Arya kept her gaze on the notebook a second longer than usual, her pen resting between her fingers without moving. The note she had just written about her patient felt complete, clinically accurate, exactly the kind of formulation she trusted. She underlined one word, power, then turned the page. Sebastian's name stared back at her. Below it, lines she'd written over the past few days. Maintains constant control of physical space. Uses proximity and touch to dominate when emotionally challenged. Avoids verbal vulnerability. She added another line now. Cold effect. Sudden boundary crossings. Normally a red flag. Here it registers as aliveness. I need to question why control feels grounding instead of threatening. She read what she'd written, slower this time. Not with curiosity, but with something hollow opening in her chest that she immediately recognized and chose not to follow. This was not how she worked. She did not merge cases. She did not let themes bleed across pages. Still, the parallel was there, too clean to ignore. She closed the notebook with controlled precision, aligning its edges on the table as if order itself could quiet the discomfort rising beneath her ribs. Her breath remained even, her posture unchanged, but something in her attention had shifted. A professional reflex kicked in, distance, containment, postponement. I'll come back to this later, she thought, knowing she wouldn't. Arya stood, carried her mug to the sink and washed it carefully, focusing on the temperature of the water, the familiar movements, the ordinary sound filling the kitchen. When she finished, she dried her hands slowly and wiped the counter, unnecessarily thorough. Across the garden, the stone house was still. She did not look toward it. The heat didn't break even after dark. Arya sat on the stone dock in her black swimsuit, bare feet dangling over the edge, watching the water turn from blue to black. She'd been sitting here for 20 minutes. Detroit felt like another lifetime. She thought about her mother. Cold, controlled, never warm with anyone, always keeping everyone at a measured distance. Arya used to watch other girls with their mothers, the ones who laughed over coffee, and feel emptiness yawn inside her. Her father died when she was 13. Heart attack. Her mother didn't cry, just kept going like nothing changed. When Arya thought about him now, all she felt was sorry. He'd spent his life trying to reach a woman who wouldn't let him in. Passive, quiet, never demanding more. Arya used to wish he would. She'd had 2 relationships in her life. Both ended the same way. She couldn't get close, couldn't let anyone all the way in. Heaviness settled in her limbs. Maybe I'm just like my mother. Maybe this coldness is genetic, already baked in. Maybe I'm too far gone to fix. The thoughts pressed down on her until the air felt too thin. She slipped into the water. The cold shocked her system, stealing her breath before her body adjusted. She dove deep, kicking until the darkness swallowed her. Down here, everything stopped. The noise in her head, the pressure in her lungs, just silence. Peace. She let herself sink, suspended in black, and for the first time in weeks she felt calm, still, like the world had finally gone quiet. The surface felt far away. She didn't want to go back yet. Was that why she'd come here? To escape a life that made her sorry for herself? She spent all day helping other people understand their problems. Maybe she understood everyone else better than she understood herself. Her lungs started to burn. Her vision blurred at the edges. Something hit the water above her. Her eyes snapped open. A shape moved through the darkness. Hands gripped her waist, yanked her against a solid chest, dragged her upward. She caught a flash of green eyes before they broke the surface. Arya gasped, coughed, sucked in air. Sebastian's arms were locked around her, his face inches from hers, water dripping between them. His eyes searched hers with an intensity that sent ice water through her veins. "What the hell were you doing down there?" His voice was rough and sharp. "Were you trying to kill yourself?" Arya shoved at his chest, breaking his grip. "What? No, I wanted some quiet. I wasn't trying to kill myself. Jesus, where did you even come from?" She turned and swam for the dock. 2 strong strokes brought her to the edge. She reached up, tried pulling herself out, but her muscles refused to cooperate. Hands closed around her hips from behind. Sebastian lifted her like she weighed nothing, setting her on the stone. He stayed in the water, bracing his hands on either side of her thighs, between her legs. The position registered somewhere low in her stomach. She couldn't look at him, didn't trust what her face might show. "Swimming in the dark isn't smart, Bella." His voice had gone quieter. Arya kept her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Are you watching me? How did you even know I was out here?" His mouth twitched. "Heard a splash. Figured someone went in." She finally looked at him. Water dripped down his face, his neck, disappearing into the dark shirt clinging to his shoulders. "Or you saw it on one of those cameras you put up everywhere." "Why are there cameras all over the property?" He shrugged, the movement casual despite the position they were in. "I'm a wealthy man. I don't want people breaking into my house. Theft's common around here." His gaze held hers. "You should be more careful too." Arya's smile turned sharp. "I don't have anything worth stealing." Sebastian reached up slowly. His fingers brushed the outside of her thigh as he plucked something from her skin. Seaweed. His thumb grazed her leg before he pulled away. "You're here." His voice came out low, almost intimate. "Someone might try to take you." Fire crawled across her face. She pulled her legs back and stood, heading for the guest house without looking back. She could feel his eyes on her, on the water dripping down her back, her legs, her hips. Even with distance growing between them, she felt him watching, like he'd already made up his mind about something she wasn't ready to face. Inside, Arya grabbed a towel and started drying off. The door opened behind her. Her body reacted before thought formed. She knew who it was. "Please leave." She kept her voice steady. "I thought we agreed not to come into each other's spaces." Sebastian didn't answer. She heard his footsteps moving closer, deliberate. Then his hand was there, gripping the towel, and he yanked it from her hands in one sharp motion. Arya stumbled back 2 steps, caught off guard by the sudden loss of the towel, her spine hitting the wall behind her. Her breathing forgot its rhythm. Sebastian closed the distance. He braced his hands on either side of her head, caging her in. He stood close enough to change her breathing, his wet clothes clinging to muscle, his presence pressing into her awareness. Her swimsuit left almost nothing between them. His voice came low and measured, "Making this fair. You saw me at my most vulnerable, didn't you?" Red bloomed across her cheeks. She was trapped between his arms, dripping wet in nothing but black fabric, and this man was looking at her like he'd already made his decision. "Don't do that again." His eyes held hers. "You could have passed out down there." Then his lips brushed her neck. Barely a touch. His breath ghosted across her throat. "I can feel what you're trying to bury." Tension corded through her abdomen. Her knees threatened to buckle, but she refused to surrender control. She forced her hands up, planted them against his chest, and shoved with whatever strength she had left. He took a step back, releasing her from the cage of his body, though his eyes never left her face. She bent down, grabbed the towel, and wrapped it around herself. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "What are you really doing here, Sebastian?" He shrugged, and something in his expression shifted, amused, testing. "Actually, I came to see if Margarita was still here." The words landed like ice water. Her jaw set, and when she spoke, her voice carried an edge she couldn't quite hide. "Well, as you can see, she's not here. I can give you her number if you're that interested." Sebastian took 2 steps toward her, closing the space she'd just created. His voice dropped. "She's not the one I'm interested in." Before instinct could warn her, his arm slid beneath her thighs, possessive, claiming, lifting her off the ground. Her back hit the wall again, her legs wrapping around his waist without permission from her mind. Then his mouth was on hers. The kiss wasn't gentle. It demanded everything. Shock held her motionless for half a breath. Then her body answered before logic could intervene, kissing him back with hunger that terrified her. A sound escaped her throat, raw, unbidden, and she hated herself for it. His lips moved to her jaw, her neck, the hollow of her throat as he murmured against her skin, "You're driving me insane." She felt everything, the heat radiating between them, the strength in his arms, the way his breath came faster, matching hers. Her mind screamed resistance, but her body had already decided. She forced the word out through the haze clouding her thoughts. "Stop!" He didn't pull away, didn't slow down, his lips still moving against her skin like he hadn't heard her at all. "Stop. I mean it." His eyes lifted to meet hers, his face still inches away. She was still in his arms, still pressed against the wall, still fighting for air. "Your body's saying something different, Arya." Anger cut through the haze, sharp enough to break the spell. She pressed her hand flat against his chest and pushed. "Put me down. Now." He lowered her slowly, his gaze never wavering. When her feet hit the floor, that faint curve returned to his mouth. Her hand moved without conscious decision, driven by something deeper than thought. The slap echoed in the small space, sharp and unmistakable. "That's for touching me without asking." Sebastian raised both hands, taking 2 steps back. The smile didn't fade. If anything, it deepened. Arya adjusted the strap of her swimsuit that had slipped down her shoulder, her hands still unsteady. "Stay away from me. Don't come into my house. I'm not interested in you." He tilted his head, studying her. "You sure about that?" She took a step toward him, fury burning through her chest. "You're arrogant, entitled. You think you can have anything you want. And when I say you're a narcissist, I'm saying it as a psychologist, not just throwing around words. I don't get involved with men like you." Sebastian laughed, actually laughed. "Psychologist." His voice dropped lower. "You sure you're describing me? Maybe you should look in a mirror sometime." He moved toward the door, his footsteps unhurried. He paused at the threshold, his silhouette dark against the night beyond. "Lock your door." Then he disappeared into the darkness. Arya stood there, fighting for breath, her pulse hammering. She whispered to herself, barely audible. "I lost control for a moment. That is unacceptable." Her mind raced. How could she let him overpower her like that? She was smarter than him, more disciplined, more... Her thoughts halted mid-sentence, the realization hitting her like cold water. Part of her didn't want to admit it, but another part, the part that scared her most, knew exactly what Sebastian had meant. Midnight. Sebastian stood under the shower until the water ran cold. He wrapped a robe around his waist and descended the stairs. Luigi was in the kitchen, Vince in the living room. Neither looked up. Down another flight. The basement stairs creaked under his weight. At the bottom, a narrow tunnel stretched ahead. He moved through it without hesitation until he reached the wall. To the right, a small wooden box. He flipped it open. Inside, a keypad glowed faint green. Sebastian punched in the code. The wall groaned, dust falling as it split and swung inward. The room beyond smelled like time had stopped. Paintings covered every surface. Sebastian moved past them and stopped in front of the largest one, gripped the frame, and lifted it off the wall. Behind it, a safe. He pressed his thumb to the scanner. The lock clicked. Inside, weapons mounted on velvet-lined brackets. 50, maybe more. He selected a Beretta, checked the chamber, slid it into his pocket. Then his attention shifted to the wall beside the safe. A massive family tree hung there, hand-painted on yellowed parchment. At the top, Venti. His finger traced down. Mattia Venti, deceased. Below him, Elora Venti, deceased. And beneath her, Aria Ellis Venti, alive. USA. His mouth curved as satisfaction settled into his bones. He turned and walked back through the tunnel, the gun a comforting weight in his pocket. At the stairs he paused, his hand resting on the cold stone wall. His gaze drifted back toward the hidden room, toward the name written in careful script. "What am I going to do with you, Aria Venti?" he murmured into the darkness. The next evening, Margarita dragged Aria out before she could invent an excuse. Aria wore a white bustier and long flowing skirt, her hair in a loose braid over one shoulder. The sun had turned her skin bronze, her hazel eyes brighter against the color. Copper strands caught the fading light as they walked. She glanced back at the stone house, taking in the empty windows and darkened rooms. No Sebastian. Relief washed through her, though she refused to examine why. Scario's square was filling as they arrived, the stone ground still warm underfoot from the day's sun. Yellow lights strung between buildings cast a soft glow over lemon branches swaying in the evening breeze. The air smelled like salt, espresso, fried dough, limoncello. Then the music started. A mandolin opened first, quick and bright, followed by the deep, layered tones of an accordion. The tambourine picked up the rhythm with insistent beats, while a violin wove through it all, binding the sounds together. Music in Scario just happened. Women rose first, wearing bright skirts and flat shoes, their feet striking stone in sharp beats. An elderly couple joined them, the man setting his cane aside before taking his wife's hand. The crowd applauded. Margarita grabbed Aria's wrist. "You don't watch in Italy. You join." Aria pulled back. The crowd, the noise, bodies moving together, not her world. She opened her mouth to refuse. The music surged faster. Margarita shoved her forward, laughing. Aria laughed too, uncontrolled. She mimicked the steps, awkward at first, then found the rhythm. Her braid came loose, her face flushed. She was breathing hard but couldn't stop smiling. She spun, skirt flaring, and that's when she saw him. Sebastian, standing at the edge of the square like he'd materialized from the shadows. Dark linen shirt, the top buttons undone. Tanned skin visible at his throat, green eyes catching the yellow lights, sharp and focused. And that expression, faint amusement barely contained, made her forget how to breathe. Her feet faltered mid-step. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she'd been thinking of nothing. Now she couldn't think of anything else. Movement rippled through the crowd near him. Conversations faltered, a woman's laugh cut short. Someone shifted aside, then another, bodies parting without anyone appearing to decide it should happen. The music kept going, but something had changed in the air. He moved deeper into the square. People made room without obvious fear, but the space opened anyway, a current shifting around an object too solid to flow past. A group of men drinking espresso went quiet as he passed. One murmured something, another placed a hand on his shoulder in warning. Sebastian's gaze never wavered from her. An older man near the fountain straightened, nodding once. Sebastian returned it with the kind of acknowledgement that said more than words. Recognition between equals, respect earned through something unspoken. He kept walking with unhurried certainty, like he owned every stone beneath his feet. Aria forced herself to look away, to focus on the dance, to match Margarita's steps, but tension corded through her shoulders. Her pulse kicked up. She could feel his attention on her, the weight, the intensity, even when she wasn't looking back. He stopped walking. Aria was mid-spin when their eyes met. Her skirt caught air, braid loose and wild across her shoulders, her head tipped back, laughter spilling from her lips at something Margarita said, unaware of what she did to him, entirely alive, The noise around him dimmed. The music, the laughter, the voices, all of it faded to background static. She turned again, feet striking stone in rhythm, and the setting sun caught the copper in her hair, turned her skin golden. Sebastian's body went still. She looked nothing like the woman who'd stood soaking wet in his doorway, furious and trembling. Nothing like the psychologist dissecting him with clinical precision. This version of her was unguarded, free, wild in a way that made something dangerous shift beneath his ribs. He started moving again, working his way toward the edge of the dancers with controlled deliberation. His presence created small disturbances, a woman glancing up and nudging her husband, a teenage boy stepping quickly out of his path. Margarita spotted him first. Her eyes widened, then a grin spread across her face. She whispered something to the woman beside her and extended her hand toward Sebastian without hesitation. Sebastian stepped into the dance like he'd been born to it. Aria's eyes flicked toward them before she could stop herself. She'd never seen a man move like that. Confident, fluid, like the music existed just for him. His hand rested at Margarita's waist with easy familiarity, spinning her in perfect time, his body angled toward hers with the kind of attention that made pressure build in Aria's chest. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. She told herself to look away, to focus on anything else. The command repeated in her head, "Don't look, don't," but she was already watching. Margarita laughed, throwing her head back as Sebastian dipped her low. His arm supported her weight effortlessly, his other hand secure at the small of her back. The crowd erupted in whistles and applause. When he pulled her upright, she was still smiling, breathless, and she leaned in close, too close, to whisper something against his ear. Sebastian's expression didn't change, but he tilted his head slightly, listening. Margarita kissed his cheek with deliberate slowness. Her hand lingered on his chest before she finally stepped back, eyes bright with invitation. Fire surged through Aria's ribs, sharp and sudden. She looked away, pretending sudden interest in the lemon trees overhead. Her breathing came shorter. The words cycled through her mind like a desperate mantra. It didn't matter. She didn't care. Margarita could have him. Margarita stepped back, fanning herself dramatically. The crowd formed a loose circle. Aria and Sebastian stood face to face in the center. The mandolin picked up again, faster, more insistent. He crossed the space in 2 strides and extended his hand, offering nothing but his palm open between them. "Trust the rhythm." Aria's heart slammed against her ribs. She could walk away, should walk away. Instead, she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers with controlled finality. The dance wasn't soft, sharp steps, quick turns, bodies circling in tight arcs. Sebastian led without dominating, his movements precise, his grip steady when she needed it. When Aria stumbled slightly, trying to match his pace, she laughed, surprised at herself, and his mouth twitched at the corner. The music accelerated. Aria stopped thinking. She spun, skirt flaring wide, hair falling loose across her face. Sebastian caught her wrist when she nearly lost balance, his thumb pressing against her pulse point for half a second before releasing, controlled, impossible to ignore. Their eyes met and held, the moment stretching between them. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. His did too. The violin climbed higher, pulling them faster. Sebastian's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through a turn. His palm burned through the thin fabric of her top. When she came back around, his chest was an inch from hers. They weren't touching, but she could feel him anyway. The heat, the solid presence, the way the air seemed thinner when he was this close. The music ended abruptly. Applause erupted around them. They stood frozen in the aftermath, caught in the space between movement and stillness. Aria's heart pounded against her ribs. She looked up at Sebastian, trying to catch her breath, trying to think, trying to remember why this was dangerous. He was looking back, not at the crowd, not at Margarita, only at her. For the first time since they'd met, in front of everyone, they just stood there looking at each other like the rest of the square had disappeared. His chest rose and fell, matching her rhythm. A strand of hair had fallen across his forehead. She had the strangest urge to reach up and push it back. Her hand actually twitched before she caught herself. The warning flashed through her mind. This is dangerous. You're losing control. Aria's thoughts tangled. Yesterday she'd slapped him. Yesterday his mouth had been on hers, his hands lifting her like she weighed nothing, his voice rough against her throat. And now she was here, laughing in his arms, pretending this was normal. Her skin still hummed where his hand had been. The realization hit cold. You're losing yourself, Arya. She turned abruptly and headed for Margarita's table, dropping into the chair harder than she meant to, reaching for the limoncello before she'd even settled. Margarita's grin widened knowingly. I thought you didn't like him, cousin. Her eyes danced with mischief. Look at your face. You're glowing. Arya rolled her eyes, forcing steadiness into her voice. It would have been rude not to dance. He's my tenant. That's all. But her gaze betrayed her, drifting sideways without permission. Sebastian stood near the bar now, dark and still in the midst of motion. Someone handed him a drink. He took it without looking, his attention already elsewhere. His eyes found hers across the crowded square. He didn't smile or nod or look away. Neither did she. The moment stretched thin between them, taut as a wire. Arya felt her pulse kick up again, felt warmth crawling back into her face. She forced herself to break contact first, turning toward Margarita with too much focus. Margarita leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Sweetheart, if you're really not interested, I need your permission to take him home tonight. She glanced toward the bar, biting her lip. Look at him. Those shoulders. Those hands. She fanned herself dramatically. I want to know what those hands feel like on... Blood rushed to Arya's face, fast and vicious. She grabbed the limoncello and downed it in one burning gulp. If Margarita knew those hands had already been on her last night, if she knew how they'd felt pressing her against the wall, how his thumb had found her pulse point during the dance, how his palm had burned through fabric like it wasn't even there. Do what you want, Margarita. Arya forced herself to look anywhere but the bar. Anywhere but him. I'm really not interested. The lie sat heavy on her tongue, tasting worse than the liquor. Arya pushed back from the table. Margarita stood, adjusting her bag over her shoulder. I can drive you home, cousin. You sure you don't want a ride? I'm sure. Arya forced a smile. It's only 10 minutes. I want to walk, clear my head. Margarita leaned in, kissing her cheek. The warmth caught Arya off guard. She'd only known her cousin for 2 weeks, but Margarita had already claimed space in her life that Arya didn't know how to navigate. Not because it was unwelcome, because accepting it felt foreign. Okay, Bella. Margarita grinned, already glancing across the square. I'll see you soon. Arya watched her cousin walk toward the bar where Sebastian stood, dark and still against the crowd. Margarita's hips swayed with deliberate invitation. Her hand found his arm. He said something. She laughed, leaning closer. Arya turned and started walking before she had to see more. Inside the guest house, she shut the door and pressed her palms flat against the wood. The ocean sounds filtered through the walls, but they didn't calm her the way they usually did. The image replayed without permission, Sebastian's hand on Margarita's waist during the dance, that half smile when she'd whispered in his ear. Arya's pulse kicked up, despite every rational thought telling her it shouldn't matter. She crossed to the kitchen, yanked open a cabinet, and grabbed the first bottle she saw. Red wine. The same brand Sebastian had criticized. She uncorked it harder than necessary. Get out of my head, you arrogant bastard! But he was already there. In the wine she refused to throw away. In the heat that hadn't left her skin since he'd touched her. In the way her body still remembered the weight of his palm at the small of her back. Her mother's voice surfaced, sharp and familiar. You're just like me. Cold, distant. You don't let anyone close because you don't know how. Arya poured too much wine into a glass and carried it to the couch. She needed a distraction. The book sat on the side table, ego states and transactional analysis. She curled into the corner near the window, the ocean dark beyond the glass. She sipped the wine, read a paragraph, sipped again. Her eyelids grew heavy. The glass tilted in her hand. Then she heard it. Metal scraping wood, faint but distinct. Her eyes snapped open. She set the glass down and listened. The cottage held its silence except for the distant rush of waves. Her mind jumped to the obvious answer. Sebastian? But no, he was with Margarita. Probably pulling her onto his lap by now, kissing her the way he'd kissed Arya yesterday. Nausea swirled low in her gut. She stood, scanning the shadows. The cottage was small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that bled into the living space. Nothing moved. The sound came again from the back. Arya crossed to the sliding door that faced the water. She unlocked it and stepped onto the stone dock. The small boat tied to the cleat rocked gently in the current, empty and harmless. She exhaled, telling herself she was being paranoid, tired, jealous. She turned toward the guest house. The night had gone too quiet. No crickets, no distant voices from the square, just the waves and her own breathing. The boat rocked against the dock behind her, creaking wood the only sound. Something along her spine woke instantly, instinct answering before logic could form the question. She took 1 step. That's when... A hand closed around her throat. Her body reacted before thought formed, feet leaving the ground, hands flying to the wrist, crushing her windpipe. But his grip was iron, unyielding. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, couldn't make any sound at all. She saw his eyes through the mask. Empty. Black. He hit her. The slap cracked across her face with enough force to white out her vision. Pain exploded along her jaw. Her brain screamed commands her body couldn't follow. Move, fight, do something, but the pressure around her throat squeezed tighter. Her lungs started to burn. Darkness edged in from the sides. Let her go! The voice came from behind the man, low and controlled in a way that made the air go still. The grip on her throat didn't loosen. The man turned his head, pulling Arya with him like a shield. Through the haze, she saw Sebastian, gun raised, expression carved from stone. Then everything went black. Arya came back in fragments, arms beneath her, strong and certain, carrying her weight like it was nothing, pain radiating from her throat, fire along her jaw, Sebastian's voice in rapid Italian, sharp with command, Vince answering somewhere close, footsteps on stairs, then the darkness pulled her under again. When she woke, pain hit first. Her throat felt crushed from the inside, her lip throbbed, swollen and split. She tried to lift her hand to touch it, but someone caught her wrist mid-motion. Don't! Sebastian's voice, quiet and close. She opened her eyes. He sat beside the bed, his face inches from hers, cotton and ointment in his hands. She tried to speak. Nothing came out but a rasp that hurt. Don't talk! He set the cotton aside, his thumb grazing her uninjured cheek with careful pressure. Your lips split. This is going to sting. The ointment burned on contact. She flinched, her face twisting despite her efforts to stay still. Sebastian's expression tightened. I know. I'm sorry. Something shifted in his voice, just barely, like a crack in glass too thin to see, but impossible to miss. Arya closed her eyes. The pain wasn't just physical. It went somewhere deeper, into a place she hadn't known could be violated. She'd never been hit before, never felt this kind of shock settling into her bones, making it hard to think clearly. He pressed an ice pack to her throat. His other hand cupped the back of her head, steadying her against the cold. You took a beating, Arya. I'm sorry I didn't get there sooner. He reached for the nightstand, returning with a glass of water and a pill. He held it to her lips. You need to take this. She shook her head. He leaned closer, his eyes finding hers with the kind of focus that made it hard to look away. It'll help with the pain. Trust me. The word hung between them, weighted with everything unsaid. Trust. He pressed the pill past her lips before she could refuse again. She wanted to spit it out, wanted to push him away, but her body hurt too much to fight. She swallowed. Sebastian stood, unbuttoning his shirt. She watched through half-closed eyes as he shrugged it off, revealing the defined lines of his chest and shoulders. He turned, giving her his back as he stripped out of his pants. For a moment, he stood there, completely bare, before pulling on sweatpants and killing the light. The bed dipped. His arm slid around her waist, pulling her against him. Solid, warm. His breath stirred her hair. Sleep now, Arya. You're safe here. With me. She should pull away, should tell him to leave, but the pain was fading, the drug working through her system, and his arms felt like the only safe place in a night that had just proven how vulnerable she was. Her breathing slowed to match his. Her muscles released tension she hadn't realized she was holding. For the first time in her life, Arya fell asleep, feeling protected in someone else's hands. Arya woke to warmth surrounding her, heavy, encompassing, impossible to ignore. Sebastian's arm lay draped across her waist, his fingers splayed against her hip. She could feel his chest rising and falling against her back, his breath warm against her neck. Then the memory hit. The attack. The masked man's hands crushing her throat. Sebastian's face emerging from the darkness. Her awareness sharpened instantly. Moving carefully, she lifted his arm and slid out from beneath it, setting it down on the mattress. He didn't wake. She sat up, steadying herself as she looked around. This wasn't her room. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced the ocean, the view stretching toward a horizon where blue water met pale sky. In the distance, she could see her guest house looking small and exposed. She looked down. Her white bustier and skirt from last night sat folded at the foot of the bed. She was wearing only her underwear. Heat crept up her neck as she grabbed the clothes and pulled them on, her fingers fumbling with the fabric. Her throat ached with every swallow. Her jaw throbbed dully. She needed to see. The mirror hung on the far wall. When she finally looked at her reflection, her breathing stopped. Her bottom lip showed slight swelling on one side with a small cut at the corner, but her neck, dark fingerprints pressed into her skin, black, fading to violet at the edges, unmistakable and vivid. Pressure built in her chest, her vision tunneled at the edges. It wasn't a nightmare. Someone tried to kill me. Hands closed around her arms. Arya! Sebastian's voice cut through the static, grounding and certain. Come here. Look at me. She tried to pull away, but he turned her toward him, bare chest, sweatpants low on his hips, green eyes sharp with focus. Breathe, he said. In through your nose, out through your mouth. She obeyed without thinking. Once, twice. The panic receded slightly. His thumbs pressed against her arms in steady pressure. You were attacked last night, but you're safe now. Her voice came out hoarse, damaged. That man, who was he? Sebastian's expression remained completely still. When he finally spoke, his tone carried the kind of finality that ended conversations. We handled it. The words settled between them, cold and absolute. Arya stepped back, yanking her arm free and putting distance between them, even as unease settled in her stomach. The calmness in his voice didn't match the violence of what had happened. What does that mean? We handled it? What the hell does that mean, Sebastian? He didn't move toward her, just stood there watching her with those unreadable eyes. It means he's not a problem anymore. It means you're safe. Her eyes widened as understanding dawned, her mind filling in the implications he wouldn't say out loud. Did you call the police? Did they arrest him? Is he... Sebastian held her gaze without blinking. I told you. We handled it. She took another step back, her damaged throat pulsing with each rapid heartbeat. Who was he? Why did he attack me? What the hell is going on? His voice remained maddeningly calm. That's not important right now. He shifted his weight slightly, the movement revealing coiled readiness beneath the stillness. What's important is that you're safe, and you're not leaving this house. Her nails bit into her palms. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to lock me up and tell me what to do. Who the hell are you? He moved toward her then, each step deliberate and unhurried. You know who I am. She shook her head, backing up until her shoulders hit the wall. No, I don't. I don't know anything. Desperation bled into her voice. How did you even get to my place so fast last night? I left you with Margarita at the square. You should have been... Something changed in his eyes. Brief, almost like relief. His voice softened. I saw you walking alone. I followed you home. I was worried about you. Relief hit her first, unexpected and sharp. He wasn't with Margarita. He chose to follow me instead. Then confusion crashed back in. That doesn't explain anything. Why were you armed? I need to go to the police. She moved toward the door. Sebastian was faster, his hand closing around her wrist and spinning her back with controlled force. You're staying here, she yanked against his hold. Let go of me. His eyes locked onto hers. The police can't help you. They can't protect you from what's coming. Her voice came out sharp, demanding. Why not? Before he could answer, someone knocked, 3 sharp raps against the door. Sebastian released her and moved into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind him but not completely. A sliver of space remained. Arya pressed herself against the wall beside the doorframe. Vince's voice came low and urgent. Boss, we identified him, Sicilian professional. Sebastian's response was quieter. She strained to hear. They took the bait. Diego. Vince's tone carried something dark and satisfied. He's the mole. Sebastian's voice sharpened. Who sent the hitman? Diego or the Lambertis? A pause, then Vince answered. Not sure yet. Another beat of silence, then Vince again, his voice dropping lower. Boss? Do they know who she is? Aria's breath caught. Sebastian's answer came slowly, each word deliberate. They must know she's a Venti, otherwise they wouldn't have tried to eliminate her. The world tilted. The name echoed in her skull. Venti. Her family name, her mother's maiden name. She shoved the door open. Both men turned, Vince's eyes widening, Sebastian's face going blank. She walked straight to Sebastian. You're going to tell me what the hell is going on, right now. He opened his mouth to respond, but she cut him off before he could get a word out. Who are you people? What are you doing in my house? Is this because of you? Did I almost die because of you? Sebastian's expression tightened. He gripped her arm and steered her back into the bedroom. The door closed with a soft click. Let me go. She yanked free. I'm going to the police, and I want you out of my house. Sebastian moved fast, catching both wrists and backing her toward the bed. When her knees hit the mattress, she fell. He followed, caging her with his arms on either side of her head, his face hovering inches from hers. Listen very carefully. His voice dropped, lethal and controlled. Whether you like it or not, you're in this now. You can't go anywhere. You're staying in this house. And if I have to handcuff you to this bed to keep you safe, I will. Fear spiked through her veins, ice water flooding them. The man who'd held her last night, gentle, protective, was gone. This was someone dangerous. Her voice trembled. Who are you? Sebastian's eyes bored into hers. My name is Sebastian Bianco. I'm the head of Clan Ventaro, a Sicilian organization. I'm here to flush out traitors, and you got caught in the crossfire. Because you're a Venti. The name meant nothing to her understanding of who she was. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. What does my family have to do with this? My mother was an art history professor. My grandfather died before I was born. That's a conversation for later. He straightened, moving off the bed and positioning himself between her and the door. Right now, you're staying in this room. I'll be back in a few hours. Vince and Luigi will be here. Other men in the house you haven't met. This is the safest place you could be. She sat up, trembling. You turned my house into a mafia safe house? His mouth curved without humor. Oh, sweetheart. You really have no idea, do you? She stared at him, struggling to process. His voice softened slightly. This house has always been a mafia safe house. Long before I rented it, before you inherited it. This property has been used by Clan Ventaro for decades. He paused, watching her carefully. Do you really not know who your mother was? Her throat closed. When she finally spoke, the words came out thin and strained. My mother was an art history professor at Columbia. She studied Renaissance painting. She was quiet and disciplined, and she never... Sebastian shook his head. Your mother was second in command of Clan Ventaro, reporting directly to my father. Your grandfather, Matteo Venti, was my father's partner for 40 years. This house, this land, everything you inherited, it came from that world. Your mother didn't escape it. She just hid it from you. Dizziness swept through her. Her hands gripped the sheets, anchoring herself as her mind rejected everything, even as some part of her recognized the truth. Lies. He's lying. But the certainty in his voice, the specific details, the way everything about her childhood suddenly looked different, it was too much to be fabricated. She forced the word out, desperate and thin. No. Sebastian crossed to the window. I'm leaving you in this room for your protection. The windows don't open far enough to climb through. 20-foot drop to stone terrace. Wait for me. I'll be back this afternoon. He moved toward her. She tensed, but he only reached out, palm cupping her cheek with unexpected gentleness. His thumb brushed across her uninjured skin. I'll protect you, he said, each word carrying absolute conviction. Whatever happens, whatever you think of me, I'll keep you safe. That's not negotiable. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut. The lock turned. She was trapped. Arya sat frozen on the bed, unable to process everything. The man who'd locked her in, the man who'd held her while she slept, the mother she'd thought she knew, the family history she'd never suspected. She dropped her head into her hands, fingers threading through her hair. Her mother, a mafia lieutenant. Her grandfather, a partner to crime lords. Her house, a safe house for criminals. Everything she'd believed about her life was built on lies. And the man who'd revealed those lies was the same man who now stood between her and people who wanted her dead. She sat there, trying to piece together a version of the world that made sense before the question finally surfaced. What the hell have I walked into? Arya sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make the pieces fit into something that resembled sense. Her mother had always had money, more than her father, more than anyone they knew in Detroit. She'd dressed well, carried herself with authority that didn't match a professor's salary. There had been business trips lasting weeks, destinations never quite explained. And Arya had never been allowed to sleep at friends' houses, never permitted to stay out after dark, never given the freedom other girls took for granted. At the time, she'd thought it was just overprotective parenting. Now she understood it differently. Her mother had been hiding her, protecting her, keeping Arya as far from this world as possible. Italy had been forbidden territory. Her mother never spoke of it, never mentioned family or the place she'd come from. When she died, pancreatic cancer, 3 brutal months from diagnosis to death. Arya had barely processed what was happening before it was over. The bank accounts were empty, completely empty for a woman who'd always seemed wealthy. The only thing left was the Detroit house. No one from Italy called. No relatives emerged. But there had been one thing. A massive black wreath at the funeral, elegant and expensive, with no card, no name, no explanation. And then the lawyer she'd never met, calling from Italy with impossible news. You're the sole heir to your family's property, a house in Scario. Her thoughts scattered as she stood abruptly and pounded on the door. Vince! Luigi! The words scraped against her damaged throat. I need my computer, my phone. You can't keep me locked in here. No answer. She hit the door harder. Let me out! The door stayed closed. Arya pressed her forehead against the wood. Her mother had kept so many secrets, had died without leaving a note, without explaining, without giving Arya anything except questions. Just that anonymous wreath at the funeral, black and elegant and meaningless. And now, Sebastian Bianco, Clan Ventaro. A world her mother had hidden so completely that Arya hadn't known to look for it. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. The lock turned. Sebastian stood in the doorway, and in his hands he held a white linen dress, simple, elegant, the kind of thing her mother would have worn. Arya. His tone was calm, controlled. I found this among your things. Put it on. You have an hour, and then I need you downstairs. Something in her snapped. She crossed the space and grabbed his collar, yanking him toward her. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you're going to tell me everything right now, or I'm going straight to the police. His eyes darkened. He moved fast, spinning her around and walking her backward until her legs hit the bed. She fell. He followed, his body covering hers, pinning her in place. His mouth crashed into hers, soft but demanding, making thought impossible. She tried to push him away, hands shoving at his chest, but he was solid muscle and controlled strength. Then he gentled. The kiss shifted, became something almost tender. When he pulled back, they were both struggling for air. Calm down, he murmured, his voice rough around the edges. Calm down, and I'll tell you everything. But only if you stop fighting long enough to listen. Tension corded through her shoulders, caught between rage and something more dangerous. She forced herself to still. He kissed her again, soft this time, gentle, just a brush of his lips against hers that somehow felt more intimate than everything that had come before. Then he shifted, his hands finding her wrists and pinning them above her head, holding her in place as he looked down at her with an intensity that made rational thought impossible. Just listen to me, he said quietly. That's all I'm asking. Listen, and then decide. She waited, awareness sharpening around everywhere he touched her. In an hour, Sebastian said, each word precise and deliberate, a city official is coming to this house. He's going to perform a ceremony. Our ceremony. His eyes locked onto hers. We're getting married, Arya. Her eyes went wide. Shock jolted through her system. What? What are you talking about? She tried to pull her hands free, tried to push him off, but his grip was iron, his body an immovable barrier, keeping her exactly where he wanted her. Stop. His tone dropped to something dangerous. Stop and listen. She managed to get the words out, despite the pressure on her chest. You're insane. I'm not marrying you, I'm not— 5 years ago, he cut her off, his voice steady and deliberate. The Lambertis set a trap. There was a meeting in Sicily. Your mother was the real target. But my father saw it coming. Luciano Bianco took the bullet meant for Elora Venti. He died protecting her. Something hollow opened in Aria's chest. I took his place. Your mother and I ran things together as partners. Aria tried to process this, tried to imagine her quiet, controlled mother making decisions about weapons and territories. The question scraped out of her damaged throat. What kind of things? His expression shifted, something almost playful crossing his features like he was testing her. Import, export. Anger flared hot behind her ribs. Don't! The word came out harder than she intended. Don't play games with me. Tell me the truth. He leaned in, lips brushing her ear. Weapons, art and antiques, the kind that belong in museums but end up in private collections. Anything valuable enough to make the risk worth it. Her eyes closed. So my mother was a gun runner. Your mother was a businesswoman who inherited a system 5 generations old. She was smart, strategic. She kept you separate because she wanted you to have a choice she never had. The words settled over Aria like a weight, pressing down on everything she thought she'd known. She barely managed to get the next words out. You knew her better than I did. I knew her. I respected her. His gaze softened. I knew you existed, but Elora was a master at compartmentalization. No one in Sicily knew about her American family. He paused. And then you showed up here, and everything changed. Aria's breathing came shallow, awareness prickling across her skin. Let go of me. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, his grip on her wrists tightening just enough to make his point. Not until you hear everything, Bella. He leaned down, kissing the corner of her mouth, making heat bloom in places she didn't want to acknowledge. Her throat constricted around the question she had to ask. Is this what my mother wanted? Did she ask you to do this? Some deathbed promise you made her? Sebastian kissed her again, harder this time, more possessive, silencing her questions with the pressure of his mouth until she stopped struggling and just felt. Keep talking, he murmured against her lips, and I'll keep doing this. I'll kiss you until you run out of air if that's what it takes to make you listen. Her body went rigid, caught between fury and something that felt dangerously close to surrender. Somewhere in the logical part of her brain, a question formed that she didn't want to answer. How could she hate him and want him at the same time? How could his touch make her forget everything she should be fighting for? I'm marrying you because it's the smartest move either of us can make. When the Lambertis tried to kill me 2 months ago, I was betrayed from the inside. My cousin Diego sold me out. Good men died. The clan fractured. I had to disappear, hide and plan my next move while everyone thought I was dead or too weak to matter. She forced the question out, smaller than she wanted. What does that have to do with me? Everything. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. This house was the last place anyone would look for me. I needed time. And then you arrived. Elora Venti's daughter. The heir no one knew existed. His mouth curved into something darker, more calculated. You're a bonus I never expected. She laughed, sharp, bitter. So this marriage is purely strategic. He studied her face for a long moment, something unreadable passing through his expression. The fact that I'm attracted to you? That's a second bonus. His body pressed more firmly against hers, and suddenly she felt it, the hard length of him pressing against her thigh, unmistakable evidence of exactly what he meant. Turns out, I'm a very lucky man. The words carried rough amusement, but his eyes held something darker, want, barely restrained. Warmth flooded her face, spreading down her neck. Despite everything, she managed to get the words out. Don't even think about it. Sebastian's hand moved to his waistband. He pulled out the gun and set it on the nightstand, his gaze never leaving hers. "Let's not have any misunderstandings," he said. Despite everything, she felt warmth crawling up her neck. He noticed. His expression shifted into something smug that made her want to hit him. "Here's what's happening." He adjusted his position slightly. "We're getting married today, announcing it. The clan will hear that Elora Venti's daughter and Luciano Bianco's son have joined forces. Everyone who scattered after Diego's betrayal will come back, rally. We'll be stronger together." She barely managed to whisper the question she'd been avoiding. "And the Lambertis?" His expression went cold, all playfulness vanishing. "They'll come here, to finish what they started." Ice water flooded her veins. "What kind of danger am I in?" His hand moved to her hair, fingers threading through with unexpected gentleness. "With me? You're safe, always." His tone dropped. "I'll protect you with my life. That's not negotiable." He stood, leaving her suddenly cold where his warmth had been. "But if they send people," she sat up. "How do we survive that?" Sebastian moved toward the door, then paused, looking back with a smile that carried more confidence than seemed reasonable. "Leave that to me. You just focus on getting ready, Miss Venti Bianco." The name rolled off his tongue. "And I promise, when this is over, I'll give you a real wedding. Something you'll never forget." He walked out. The lock turned. Arya sat frozen, staring at the white linen dress. Her mind replayed everything. The impossible family history, the dangerous alliances, the wedding supposed to happen in less than an hour. She thought about her mother, the secrets, the careful distance Elora had maintained from this world. Had her mother wanted this? Had she imagined Arya would be pulled into the same dangerous world she'd worked so hard to escape? Or had she died believing her daughter would remain safe, separate, untouched? 1 hour, that's all she had. 1 hour to decide whether to put on that dress and walk downstairs and marry a man who was either her salvation or her destruction. 1 hour to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do. Arya stood in front of the mirror, staring at a stranger. The white linen dress Sebastian had left hung perfectly on her frame, simple and elegant in a way that made her want to laugh. Her fingers moved to her neck, tracing the purple marks the attacker had left. Her lower lip showed slight swelling on one side with a small cut at the corner. A faint bruise shadowed her cheekbone. This wasn't how she'd imagined getting married. The thought made her smile despite everything, a sharp twist of her lips without humor. She'd never imagined getting married at all, never let herself think that far ahead, never believed anyone would see past the careful walls she'd built. And here she was, 2 weeks. That's all it had taken for her entire life to collapse and rebuild itself into something unrecognizable. She ran her hands through her damp hair, trying to smooth it into something presentable. No makeup, no lipstick, nothing but bruises, and this dress Sebastian had pulled from her own belongings. Her reflection stared back. Wide eyes, pale skin. She looked exactly like what she was. A woman standing at the edge of something she couldn't control, couldn't stop, couldn't run from. The fact that she was thinking about lipstick right now almost made her laugh. The grand staircase stretched down into the main hall, and Arya descended slowly, one hand trailing along the carved banister for balance. Voices drifted up from below, low, masculine tones, a woman's laugh. When she reached the landing, she stopped. Vince stood near the windows, arms crossed, his usual position of silent observation. Luigi leaned against the far wall, one hand resting casually at his hip, where she knew he kept his gun. A nervous-looking man in glasses clutched a leather folder to his chest like a shield, his eyes darting around the room as if calculating escape routes. The city official. A young man she didn't recognize stood beside Sebastian, maybe early 30s, dark hair and sharp features that carried the same controlled stillness she'd learned to recognize in this family. And Margarita. Gone were the flowy dresses and bohemian scarves. She wore cargo pants and a fitted t-shirt, her long wavy hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked like she belonged here, comfortable in this world of guns and danger in a way that made pressure build in Arya's chest. Sebastian moved toward her, and everyone in the room seemed to shift slightly, the way soldiers adjust their formation when their commander takes the field. "Arya." His tone carried that same controlled calm that made her want to throw something at his head. "Your cousin Margarita, you've already met." He gestured to the young man beside him. "This is Alfonso Venti, Margarita's brother, also your cousin. Alfonso inclined his head, his dark eyes assessing her with both respect and calculation. Hello, Arya. Margarita grinned. Well, cousin, look at you, snagging the hot one. Arya stared at them both, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Another cousin, more family she'd never known existed. Sebastian's hand closed around her elbow, steady and warm. We need to do this now. She wanted to pull away, wanted to demand answers, explanations, time to process this latest revelation. Instead, she let him guide her toward the nervous official, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. They stopped in front of the desk someone had set up for the occasion. The official cleared his throat 3 times before speaking, his hands trembling slightly as he opened his folder. His words cracked. He tried again. I need to ask if you're both entering into this marriage of your own free will, without coercion or... Yes. Sebastian's answer cut through the air with absolute certainty. He lifted Arya's hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that sent awareness racing up her arm. His eyes locked onto hers, dark and intense, and full of something that made her pulse shift rhythm. The official turned to her. And you, Miss Venti? Arya swallowed hard. Every eye in the room was on her. She thought about running, about saying no, about all the logical, reasonable objections she should be making. She forced steadiness into her words despite the chaos in her head. Do I have any other choice? The official blinked at her through his thick glasses, uncertainty flickering across his face. I mean, yes. The admission scraped past the tightness in her throat. Yes, I do. The paperwork took maybe 3 minutes. Signatures, initials, the scratch of pen on paper marking the legal transformation of Arya Venti into Arya Bianco. The official gathered his papers with hands that shook. You can pick up your marriage certificate from City Hall tomorrow, or... He glanced at Luigi, who'd moved to stand directly behind him, one hand resting meaningfully at his waist. Or I could deliver it first thing in the morning. Sebastian's tone left no room for discussion. That would be appreciated. The official practically ran for the door. The moment he was gone, Margarita launched herself at Arya, pulling her into a hug that forced air from her lungs. Welcome to the family, cousin. Arya stood stiff in her arms, her mind still trying to catch up. Is that? She pulled back slightly. Do you have a gun? Just a 9mm, not a big deal. Margarita waved it off like it was nothing. I will not get used to it. But even as she said it, Arya knew she was lying. She was already getting used to too many impossible things. She grabbed Margarita's arm, pulling her aside while the men talked in low voices near the windows. Arya dropped her volume. I thought you liked Sebastian. You said... Margarita laughed. I do like Sebastian. I've known Seb since we were kids. Her eyes softened. But not like that, Arya. Never like that. She paused. And clearly, he likes you. But... Tension corded through Arya's shoulders. What about all the things you said about him? Margarita laughed harder this time, the sound carrying genuine amusement. That was to test you, sweetheart. Her grin widened. And, honey, you couldn't hide your jealousy. It was written all over your face. Shame surged through Arya's ribs, hot and sudden. She looked across the room at Sebastian, deep in conversation with Alfonso. They'd all played her, set her up. And she, a psychologist trained to read people, had never suspected a thing. I need some time alone. The words came out tight and strained. This is too much. She headed for the stairs, needing distance, needing space to think. Behind her she heard Sebastian say something low to Alfonso, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. The massive oil painting dominated the second-floor landing, generations of Ventis staring down with dark eyes and stern expressions. She found herself drawn to it, searching the painted faces until she found her, Elora, maybe 16 years old in the portrait, standing slightly apart from the others. Dark hair caught back in a severe braid, chin lifted in defiance, eyes holding a wildness that hadn't yet been tamed by years of careful control. My mother was a mafia boss. Arya said it out loud, testing the words. They still didn't feel real. So that was your final surprise, wasn't it? One last secret you couldn't tell me yourself. The painted eyes stared back, offering no answers. What's our next move? Alfonso stood beside Sebastian near the windows, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. Sebastian swirled the scotch in his glass, watching the amber liquid catch the late afternoon light. We wait. Alfonso's eyebrows lifted slightly, waiting for more. To see who panics, who stays quiet, who makes the first move. He took a slow sip. We'll know who's with us and who isn't, and when the Lambertis come, his expression shifted into something calculated. We'll be ready. Alfonso studied him for a long moment, reading the tension in his shoulders. You're calm. I was calm. Sebastian's gaze drifted to the stairs where Arya had disappeared. But now I have someone to worry about. Someone I need to protect. Alfonso's expression softened with something that might have been understanding. She's stronger than you think. I know exactly how strong she is. Sebastian's tone dropped lower. That's what worries me. Margarita appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. Seb, how many men do you have in the basement? 6, armed, with enough weapons and equipment to hold off a small army. Margarita's fingers flew across her phone screen. Then I'm sending word, letting people know the bride and groom are home. She disappeared again, her footsteps fading down the hallway. Sebastian moved to the window, looking out at the darkening sea. Time was running out. Either he'd end up buried on this property, or he'd take control of the entire clan. The next few days would decide everything. He finished his drink in one swallow and headed upstairs. Arya lay on the bed, wrapped in a towel, her hair still damp from the shower. The events of the day played on repeat in her mind. The ceremony, Margarita's betrayal, the family portrait, her mother's teenage face staring out from decades past. The door opened. Heavy footsteps crossed the threshold. Sebastian. He moved into the room with that controlled grace she'd learned to recognize, all coiled strength and deliberate motion. When he sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipped under his weight. Let me see. His tone was quiet. Your face. Your neck. She turned toward him, let him cup her chin in his hand. His fingers traced the bruise on her cheekbone with unexpected care, moved down to the purple mark circling her throat. When his thumb brushed across her swollen lower lip, her breathing stopped for half a second. I need you to know something. He held her gaze. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. That's not negotiable. Ice pressed against her skin. He'd brought something cold from downstairs. The shock of it made her gasp as he drew the ice cube slowly down her neck, following the line of bruises. Look on the bright side. His expression shifted. At least we're attracted to each other. Her awareness sharpened instantly. She forced herself to meet his eyes, to keep steadiness in her words. What makes you think I'm attracted to you? That notebook you keep? The ice continued its path, leaving trails of cold water on her heated skin. You dedicated an entire page to analyzing me. Mortification flooded through her. She sat up fast, clutching the towel. You went through my things. That notebook has confidential patient information. You had no right. I only read what you wrote about me. His eyes held that dangerous quality she was learning to recognize. The rest doesn't interest me. The ice moved lower, tracing her collarbone. Her skin felt like it was on fire everywhere he touched, like her body was trying to melt the ice before it could reach her. He watched her face with focused intensity, reading every reaction. You wrote that I was dangerously compelling, that I made you feel unbalanced and attracted despite better judgment. His fingers slipped inside the towel, and suddenly the ice was between her breasts, cold shock against overheated skin. A sound escaped her, half gasp, half moan, entirely involuntary. Sebastian pulled her against him, his mouth finding hers with deliberate hunger. This time, Arya didn't hesitate, didn't analyze, didn't try to maintain distance. She kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. Her hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling with them until frustration made her yank hard. Sebastian caught her wrists. His breathing came unsteady. He whispered her name. Arya. His hands moved to the towel wrapped around her. In one swift motion he pulled it away, dropping it to the floor. His control shattered visibly. He shed his shirt in one smooth motion, his hands already reaching for her. She climbed into his lap, her body fitting against his like they'd been designed for exactly this. They were lost in each other, mouths and hands and heat, when her fingers found his belt, traced lower, and closed around the gun he kept holstered at the small of his back. In one fluid movement, she pulled it free and pressed the barrel to his temple. Sebastian went still. Then he started laughing, low and genuinely surprised, and somehow turned on despite the weapon aimed at his head. "What are you doing?" His words carried equal parts shock and admiration. "Here's what's going to happen." Arya's words came out steadier than she felt, naked in his lap with his gun in her hand. "We're going to leave this house. You're going to take me to the nearest airport. You're going to put me on a plane. And I'm going home, to my actual life, the one I had before you destroyed everything." His smile widened. "So you're leaving your husband behind? How loyal." "Don't!" She pressed the gun harder against his skull. "Don't make jokes. And don't forget whose daughter I am." His eyes locked onto hers, testing, challenging. "What if I say no?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned the gun toward the open window and fired once. The shot cracked through the night, impossibly loud in the quiet room. Sebastian stared at her. "How the hell do you know how to shoot?" "I used to go to the range when I needed to clear my head." She brought the gun back to his temple. "Stress relief. Turns out I'm good at it." He laughed again, the sound rich with genuine pleasure. "You really are Elora's daughter." The door burst open. Luigi, Vince, and Margarita poured in, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Margarita took in the scene, Arya naked on Sebastian's lap, gun to his head, both of them struggling for air, and her eyebrows shot up. "Oh, well, sorry to interrupt." Luigi and Vince backed out immediately, faces carefully blank. "Everything's fine," Sebastian said, never taking his eyes off Arya. "You can go." Arya kept the gun steady. "My husband and I are having a private discussion. Leave us alone." Margarita's expression shifted with amusement. "Of course. Take your time." She backed out, pulling the door shut. Silence fell. Heavy. Charged. Arya's chest rose and fell rapidly, her whole body humming with adrenaline, and something else, something hotter and more dangerous. Sebastian's gaze dropped to where her breasts moved with each breath. "Do you have any idea how much you're turning me on right now?" Despite everything, she forced the words out, breathless but determined. "Do you have any idea how serious I am?" She steadied the gun. "I'm telling you. We're leaving. Tonight. You're taking me to the airport." Her eyes locked on his. "And give me the towel." He hesitated, then reached for it slowly. His hand moved toward the towel, but instead of handing it to her, he struck with brutal efficiency. One hand knocked the gun from her grip, while the other flipped her beneath him in a single fluid motion. He pinned her wrists above her head with one hand, used the other to eject the magazine and clear the chamber. The gun clattered to the floor, harmless. First rule of holding someone at gunpoint. His body pressed her into the mattress, solid and warm and in complete control. "Don't let them distract you." She struggled, but he held her effortlessly. "Let me go." "Listen to me." His tone took on an edge she hadn't heard before. "Even if I took you to the airport, even if I put you on the first plane to Detroit, they know about you now. They know Elora had a daughter, and they will find you." His eyes forced her to see the truth. "You think the Lambertis will just let you walk away? You think they won't use you to get to me? To get to this family?" Ice water flooded her veins. "Your plan won't work." His grip on her wrists tightened. "Trusting me is the only option you have. Your mother trusted me. I was loyal to her until the day she died. And I will be loyal to you for the rest of my life." Arya stopped struggling, went still beneath him. Why was she fighting this? She'd wanted him from the first moment she'd seen him. Wanted his arrogance and his danger, and the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the room worth seeing. She'd written pages about him in her notebook, analyzed every interaction, tried to logic her way out of the attraction. But logic had nothing to do with what she felt. She reached up and pulled his mouth down to hers. Not like before, when she'd been trying to distract him. This was real, raw, honest want stripped of all pretense. He groaned against her lips, his control finally breaking completely. His hands released her wrists to tangle in her hair, to map the curves of her body, to touch every inch of skin like he'd been dying to for weeks. She pulled at his belt, his zipper, needing him closer, needing more. When his clothes finally joined hers on the floor, she wrapped herself around him, pulling him into her orbit. This time when he moved between her thighs, she didn't tense, didn't pull away. She opened for him. When he filled her, the sensation stole her breath, full, complete, right in a way that terrified her. "I need you, Arya." His words broke on her name. "I need you with me. I need you to be mine." She couldn't answer, couldn't form words. Her body said everything, the way she moved with him, the sounds that escaped her throat, the way her nails dug into his shoulders. Something was changing inside her, some fundamental shift in who she'd always been. The careful psychologist who analyzed everything, who maintained distance, who stayed in control. She was dying, being replaced by someone who took risks, who felt deeply, who chose want over safety. Maybe this was the Venti blood finally waking up, the legacy her mother had tried to bury rising to claim its place. Or maybe this was just Arya, finally allowing herself to be fully alive. When she shattered around him, his name torn from her lips, she felt the last walls inside her crumble. When he followed her over the edge seconds later, his face buried in her neck, she knew nothing would ever be the same. They lay tangled together afterward, neither willing to move. His hand traced patterns on her spine. "Stay with me." It wasn't a command. It was a request. Maybe even a plea. Arya didn't answer with words. She kissed his jaw, his throat, let her body speak for her. Outside, the sea crashed against the rocks. Somewhere in the house, armed men stood guard. Enemies were planning. Danger was coming. But in this moment, wrapped in Sebastian's arms, Arya felt something she'd never expected. Not his power, her own. She'd spent her whole life trying to be safe, trying to stay small, trying to avoid becoming what her mother had been. But maybe safety wasn't the goal. Maybe power was. And maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found where she belonged. Arya woke to warmth. Solid chest beneath her cheek, arms wrapped around her like she belonged there. Sebastian's breathing, slow and steady, told her he was still asleep. She tried to slip away carefully, to untangle herself without waking him. His arms tightened instantly, pulling her back against him. Sleep roughened his words, darkening them. "You weren't thinking of sneaking out of bed on our first morning together." It wasn't a question. His hands moved over her body, slow and deliberate, mapping skin he'd claimed hours before. When she looked up at him, his eyes held something that made her breathing stop. Want, yes, but deeper, softer. Love. The word hit her chest with sudden force. She'd never seen that look directed at her before, never let herself believe anyone would look at her that way. His mouth found hers, hungry and possessive, and she was already arching into him when the knock came, sharp and urgent. "Boss!" Vince's voice carried through the door. "There's a large yacht anchored offshore." Sebastian went still. The heat between them vanished, replaced by something colder, sharper. He was already moving, pulling on shirt and pants with practiced efficiency. The gun holstered at his back appeared as naturally as breathing. Arya moved to the window, looking out at the open water. A sleek white yacht sat maybe a quarter-mile out, pristine against the morning sun. It could be anyone. People anchor here all the time. "I don't deal in assumptions." Sebastian joined her at the window, tension radiating from his body. "This is a private cove. If they're anchored here instead of near town," his gaze tracked the yacht with predatory focus. "They might be exactly who we've been expecting. The marriage announcement went out yesterday. They moved fast." Ice water spread through Arya's veins. "You think it's them? The Lambertis?" He didn't answer, just headed for the door. The main room had transformed into something resembling a military command post. Margarita stood at the window with binoculars pressed to her eyes, her casual morning energy replaced by sharp alertness. "Has to be the Lambertis." She didn't lower the binoculars. Nobody else would wear black suits on a luxury yacht in this heat. Peasants have no sense of occasion. Alfonso appeared from the direction of the armory, checking the magazine of his sidearm. "We could send a fishing boat out, get a closer look, maybe—" "No." Sebastian took the binoculars from Margarita, studying the yacht himself. His expression shifted into something calculated. "We do nothing." Nothing? Alfonso's eyebrows lifted. They won't attack before dark. Right now, they're watching, counting. Sebastian lowered the binoculars. We need them to think we're unprotected, comfortable, moving around like we don't have a care in the world. His gaze swept the room. They need to believe they have the advantage. Margarita's expression mirrored his calculation. So, we give them a show. Exactly. Sebastian turned to her and Aria. Put on your swimsuits. We're going to spend the morning by the water. Aria and Margarita looked at each other. Margarita shrugged like this was just another Tuesday in the Venti family playbook. 30 minutes later, Aria sat on the stone dock beside Margarita, their legs dangling over the edge. The small motorboat bobbed gently beside them. The sun beat down warm on her shoulders. The water sparkled invitingly, and somewhere out in that gorgeous blue expanse, armed men were watching them through scopes. The disconnect made her dizzy. Sebastian appeared on the dock wearing only swim trunks, his body all lean muscle and controlled strength. He didn't hesitate, just dove cleanly into the water. Try not to look at the yacht. Margarita took a sip from her glass, something orange and sparkling that looked entirely too cheerful for the situation. We're not in danger right now. We should enjoy the moment while we can. Aria's eyes tracked to where Sebastian had disappeared underwater. He'd been down too long. Anxiety buzzed under her skin until he surfaced near the motorboat's hull, working on something beneath the waterline. What's he doing? Margarita swirled her drink like this was a perfectly normal beach day. Placing explosives. C4, probably. Maybe Semtex if we're low on the good stuff. The words were so casual, so matter-of-fact, that Aria almost didn't process them. Then they hit. He's what? Sebastian's thorough. Margarita tilted her face toward the sun. Always has backup plans for his backup plans. Aria's gaze swept the small cove, landing on the Zodiac raft tucked against the boathouse. What's that for? Another elegant shrug. Escape route. Told you. Thorough. Sebastian surfaced, water streaming down his chest as he pulled himself onto the dock. He moved straight to Aria, leaning down to kiss her before she could form words. You're not blowing up my cottage. She meant it to sound firm. It came out breathless instead. His lips brushed against hers. I'll buy you a better house. Bigger. Wherever you want. Aria shook her head, reality pressing in from all sides. I had a normal life 2 weeks ago. Boring maybe, but normal. She turned to Margarita, who was pouring herself another drink despite the fact that it was barely 11 in the morning. And you're drinking Aperol at 11 a.m. Sweetheart, this is Venti tradition. Margarita raised her glass in salute. Cocktails at 11, wine at lunch, liqueur in the late afternoon, tequila with dinner, whiskey before bed. She took a long sip. You'll get used to it. I don't want to get used to it. But even as Aria said it, she knew she was lying. Some part of her, the part that had pulled a gun on Sebastian last night, that had felt power surge through her veins, was already adapting, becoming something new and dangerous. Before she could spiral further into that thought, arms wrapped around her from behind. Sebastian lifted her effortlessly, cradling her against his chest. What are you doing? His eyes held that intensity she was learning to recognize. Something I've wanted to do since the first moment I saw you. Then he jumped, taking her with him into the crystalline water. They surfaced together, her gasp of shock turning into breathless laughter despite everything, despite the yacht full of armed men, despite the explosives, despite the fact that her entire world had been demolished and rebuilt in 14 days. Sebastian's hands found her waist under the water, pulling her close. I never told you about the hidden cove, did I? Just past that outcropping. Aria bit her lower lip, trying not to smile. Yes, you mentioned it. His grin turned wicked. Did I mention what I plan to do to you once I get you there? She pressed her hand over his mouth, cutting him off, the playfulness drained from her tone. Tell me we're going to survive tonight. He kissed her palm, his green eyes catching the sunlight until they practically glowed. The lightness vanished, replaced by unwavering certainty. I won't let anyone hurt you, Bella. Not them. Not anyone. His hands tightened on her waist, protective and possessive at once. I promise you that. Somewhere beyond them, the yacht sat silent and watchful. Somewhere beneath the motorboat, explosives waited for their trigger. Somewhere in the house behind them, weapons were being checked and loaded, but in this moment, wrapped in Sebastian's arms with the sun warm on her shoulders and the water cool against her skin, Arya chose to believe him. She had to. Because the alternative was unthinkable. The sun bled into the horizon, turning the Mediterranean crimson. Inside the cottage, lights blazed from every window. The dining room table held the remnants of dinner, wine glasses, half-eaten pasta, the appearance of normalcy. Sebastian sat at the head of the table, phone pressed to his ear, issuing orders with controlled precision. Margarita swirled wine in her glass, looking perfectly relaxed despite the armed men preparing in the rooms beyond their sight. All day I felt like I was on a theatre stage. Margarita took a sip, her eyes bright with amusement. But honestly, one of the most fun days I've had in a while. Sebastian's attention never left his phone. Luigi, everything ready downstairs? A pause. Good. Tell the boat to move to the other cove within the hour. No lights. Understood? Arya watched him from across the table. 2 weeks ago, he'd been nothing but an arrogant stranger with a handsome face and dangerous eyes. Now, he was her husband. The word still felt foreign in her mouth, like a language she was learning to speak but hadn't quite mastered. She tried not to notice how attractive he looked when he gave orders, that controlled authority in his voice, the way people snapped to attention when he spoke, the subtle shift in his posture that signaled he was 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. She definitely didn't see her father in him, that much was certain. But her mother? Arya stared out at the darkening water, her psychology training kicking in despite herself. The brain always defaults to familiar patterns. It chooses what it knows, not because it's safe, but because it's inevitable. She'd built her entire career studying how the brain works, understanding the mechanics of attachment and desire, and yet she'd fallen for this man anyway, knowingly, deliberately. How else could it be explained? The realization settled in her chest, solid and undeniable. She didn't want to stop it, not anymore. Sebastian, Alfonso's voice cut through from the doorway. 2 unfamiliar cars just left town, heading this way, and the yacht launched a speedboat into the water. Sebastian stood, his movements controlled despite the tension radiating from his frame. His gaze found the clock on the wall, 9 p.m. They'll surround us within the hour. Attack around 11. He scanned the room, sharp and assessing. Only Margarita, Vince, and Luigi stay visible. Everyone else stays out of sight. They can't see our full numbers, understood? Heads nodded around the room. Sebastian extended his hand to Arya, palm up. An invitation, not a command. Come with me. The bedroom felt smaller with both of them in it. Sebastian closed the door, then crossed to her in 2 strides. He cradled her face between his palms, the touch almost unbearably gentle for someone who'd spent the day preparing for war. When he kissed her, it was soft, tender, wrong for the moment. What was that for? The words came out unsteady, barely controlled. In 2 hours, men who want to kill us will be surrounding this house. Why are you so calm? He pulled her toward the bed, guiding her down beside him until they were lying face to face. His thumb traced her cheekbone, a touch so careful her throat ached. If these were our last moments, his gaze locked onto hers, serious and unflinching. Would you rather spend them dying of stress? Or this? Arya shoved against his chest, sitting up abruptly. The mattress shifted beneath her. We've known each other 2 weeks. You're not about to tell me you're in love with me. Sebastian propped himself on one elbow, studying her with those unsettling green eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. How long does it take to fall in love, according to your scientific data, psychologist? She opened her mouth, closed it. Because I knew. His tone dropped lower, more intimate. The moment you fell into my lap and looked up at me with those eyes, I knew I'd be with you, that this was inevitable. Because you planned it. The words came out bitter, defensive. No. He reached for her hand, pressing her palm flat against his chest. His heartbeat slammed against her fingers, fast and strong and real. This has nothing to do with planning. It's this. Just this. His hand covered hers, holding it there. Sometimes seconds are all it takes to fall. The certainty in his words made pressure build in her chest. Why me? The question escaped before she could stop it. Vulnerable and raw, and everything she'd been trying not to feel. "Why did you fall for me?" His lips shifted into a smile, but different this time, softer at the edges. "You want a scientific explanation? I'm sure you have one ready." He shifted closer, eliminating the last of the space between them. "But let me tell you what I see." His fingers traced the line of her jaw, feather light. "The distance in your eyes, like you're always calculating escape routes even when you want to stay." He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "The way you surrender your body to my arms, then immediately pull yourself together and take control back, that contradiction." Her breathing stopped for half a second. "You tell me to stay away while your body burns for me to come closer. Everything about you screams, 'Don't touch,' while something deeper begs, 'Take me now.'" His thumb grazed her lower lip. "That fragility behind your walls. The fire that flashes in your eyes when you're angry, and you turn your head away, trying to hide it from me." She swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. For the first time in her life, someone was seeing through her, actually seeing her. Not the version she presented to the world, not the professional psychologist with all the answers, but the messy, contradictory truth underneath. He knew her better than she knew herself. A tear slipped free before she could stop it. She wiped it away quickly, hoping he hadn't noticed. He had. Sebastian leaned in, his forehead touching hers. When he kissed her this time, it was different, questioning. His lips moved against hers, searching, while his palms framed her face like she might break. "Tell me, Arya." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, need roughening his words. "What do you feel for me?" He guided her down onto her back, his weight settling over her as he kissed her with deepening hunger. His touch moved with purpose, learning the shape of her through fabric. "If you really want me," his breathing grew uneven, "I need to hear it. Tonight I need hope." His fingers found the hem of her dress, sliding it upward. Cool air hit her skin. Moonlight spilled through the window, painting everything silver and shadow. When he looked down at her, his expression shifted into reverence. "I don't just need your body." His palms mapped her skin, slow and deliberate. "I need your soul laid bare too. All of you." Arya pulled him down, wrapping her arms around his neck. Her lips found his ear, and she whispered the words she'd been terrified to say out loud. "I want you, Sebastian." Her words shook. "I love you." She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes to make sure he understood. "Make love to me, like there's no tomorrow." He kissed her, and everything else fell away. When he moved inside her, his gaze locked onto hers, vulnerable, open, stripped bare. "I love you." Need cracked through his words. "Arya, I love you." She wrapped herself around him, his name breaking apart in her mouth, as pleasure crashed through them both. When it was over, they collapsed together, neither willing to let go. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, armed men were moving into position. A yacht sat waiting offshore. Violence approached with terrible certainty. But here, in this moment, wrapped in moonlight and each other's arms, they'd found what mattered, what was worth surviving for. The pounding on the door shattered everything. Arya lay against Sebastian's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. For one stolen second, she'd felt completely safe, the calm before the storm, the last breath before drowning. Then Margarita burst through the door. "They're coming, Seb!" Her voice cut through the darkness. "Move, now!" They dressed in seconds, hands fumbling with buttons and zippers. Sebastian grabbed Arya's hand and pulled her toward the door. They hit the stairs at a run, his grip tight enough to bruise. Every light in the cottage was dead. Darkness swallowed them whole. When they reached the basement door, Sebastian keyed in the code. The steel panels slid open, revealing stairs that descended into what looked like a military bunker. Weapons lined the walls, tunnels branched off in 3 directions. Men moved with practiced efficiency, checking magazines, adjusting vests. Arya's breath caught. Her mother had grown up in this house, in these tunnels, walking past these same weapons, learning to survive in a world Arya had never known existed. How little she'd actually known her. The thought pierced her chest, sharp and sudden. 6 armed men pushed past them, heading up the stairs toward the main floor. Sebastian's hand shot out, catching Vince by the shoulder. "Stay sharp." His voice stayed calm despite everything. "When this place comes down, make sure you're not still in it." Vince nodded once, jaw tight. Sebastian clapped him on the shoulder. "If we don't meet down here, I'll see you on the boat." He turned to Luigi and Margarita, his expression hardening. "She's yours. Keep her safe." "No." Arya shook her head, the word ripping out of her. "You're not staying. You can't. I have to be with my men." Sebastian's eyes held hers, steady and sure. "I'm the only one who can trigger the mechanism. They need to know I'm here, that I'm fighting with them." Arya's fingers wrapped around his wrist, desperate. "I'm not leaving without you." Margarita's hand closed over hers, gentle but firm. "They'll come back, Arya. They always do." And she looked at Sebastian, something fierce flickering across her face. "Watch out for Alfonso. Don't come back without him." Sebastian pulled Arya close, kissing her hard and fast. "1 hour. I'll meet you on the boat. I promise." Then he was gone, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Margarita's hand locked around Arya's arm, pulling her toward the tunnel entrance. Arya twisted, looking back over her shoulder. "God, please, don't let that be the last time I see him. Bring him back to me." The sound of gunfire erupted above them. Sebastian punched the code into the hidden panel, slipping into the room that didn't officially exist. The explosive mechanism sat waiting, exactly where he'd placed it 3 years ago when he'd fortified this cottage. Just in case. 40 minutes. That's all the time anyone in this house would have. He entered the sequence, watching the timer activate. The digital display began its countdown. He holstered 2 guns at his belt, grabbed a third for his hand. When he stepped out of the room and headed for the upper stairs, his mind held one thought. This wouldn't be his last night. He was going back to her. Arya ran through the narrow tunnel, darkness pressing in from all sides. The beam from Margarita's flashlight bounced ahead of them, barely cutting through the black. Then she stopped. Leaving him behind to save herself, it felt wrong. Viscerally, fundamentally wrong. "Miss Venti?" Luigi's voice came from behind her. "What's wrong?" "Don't they need you up there?" Her breathing came hard and fast. "Why are we running away?" "My orders are to get you to the boat alive." Luigi moved closer, his bulk blocking the tunnel behind her. "We can't waste time. Keep moving." "Arya! Luigi!" Margarita's voice echoed from somewhere ahead. "Where are you?" Luigi shouted back, his voice bouncing off stone walls. "Keep going. Someone needs to reach the boat and alert the captain. I'll bring Miss Venti." Silence stretched for a moment before Margarita's voice came again, fainter now. "You better be right behind us." Margarita hesitated. Arya could feel it in the silence. Then the flashlight beam disappeared around a corner, swallowed by the tunnel's throat. Luigi's hand closed around Arya's arm, firm, insistent. "Come on, this way." He steered her toward a different branch of the tunnel. "We have to follow the plan." Arya followed Luigi deeper into the tunnel. Something felt off. She couldn't name it, couldn't pin it down, but the wrongness sat heavy in her gut. They moved forward through the darkness, their footsteps echoing off stone walls. Then she heard it, the sea. Waves against rock, a pinpoint of light appeared ahead, the tunnel's exit. When she stepped through, confusion hit her like cold water. She stood right next to her own cottage. The small stone building loomed dark and empty beside her. The dock stretched toward black water. This wasn't the boat. This wasn't where they were supposed to go. "Luigi." She turned toward him, her voice sharp with confusion. "Where are we? Why did we come out here?" Luigi raised his gun. The barrel pointed straight at her chest. His voice dropped to a whisper first, barely audible over the distant gunfire. "Don't be scared." Then louder, carrying through the tunnel. "I'm sorry, Arya. The Ventis can't be part of the Venturo clan anymore. You shouldn't have come here. You two shouldn't have joined together." His jaw tightened. If Sebastian takes control of the clan, he'll change everything. All the connections, the entire operation. Fear clawed up Arya's throat, but her mind worked faster. She squinted at him through the darkness, trying to read his face. "Are you working with Diego?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Or the Lambertis. Luigi moved toward her, the gun never wavering. Keep walking. She could see the main house now through the tunnel opening. Gunfire flashed in the windows. Muzzle light painted the stone walls in bursts of orange and white. What about Sebastian? The words tore out of her. Margarita? Alfonso? Are you going to kill everyone? They're part of Venturo. Luigi's expression held something that might have been regret. You're not. Aria stepped backward. Her heel hit stone. The dock, the small cottage loomed behind her, dark and empty. The Mediterranean stretched beyond, black water reflecting firelight. Then the world exploded. The blast from the main house shook the ground beneath her feet. Stone and timber erupted skyward in a column of flame. Heat washed over her, even from this distance. Sebastian, did you make it out? The thought seized her chest, squeezing until she couldn't breathe. Nothing personal, Aria. Luigi's voice cut through the roar of the inferno. I'm sorry. The gun cracked. Impact punched her backward. Not pain yet. Shock. Her body registered the hit before her mind could process it. The last thing she saw was the Venti house engulfed in flames, stone walls crumbling into orange and red. The last thing she felt was the memory of Sebastian's mouth on hers. She hit the water on her back. The same water she'd swum in that morning, laughing while he held her. Cold swallowed her whole. Salt stung her eyes, her lips. Is this how it ends? She'd just started discovering parts of herself she'd buried for years. She'd finally stopped apologizing for existing. She'd found a man who saw her, really saw her, and roots she'd only begun to understand. And now she was leaving it all behind, exiting the game before she'd learned the rules. Images flashed through her mind as darkness pulled her under. Sebastian's green eyes catching sunlight, his hands cradling her face, the way he'd looked at her in that basement like she was worth protecting. 2 weeks. That's all they'd had. It surprised her that those were her last thoughts, not her practice, not her career, not the life she'd built so carefully in the city. Just him. Just those 2 stolen weeks. The cold water dragged her deeper. Pressure built in her lungs, in her ears. She stopped fighting. Her eyes drifted closed. Silence wrapped around her like a blanket, peaceful, final, complete. It filled every space inside her until there was nothing left but stillness. Darkness pulled her deeper. Pressure built in her lungs, in her ears, behind her eyes. The cold had gone beyond cold into numbness. Aria's body felt distant, someone else's problem. Her eyes drifted shut, then an arm wrapped around her waist from below. Someone yanked her against a solid chest, kicked hard. The grip around her ribs was iron, unyielding, pulling her back toward a surface she could no longer see. Aria's eyes opened underwater. Green. A pair of green eyes stared back at her through the murk. She knew those eyes. Had memorized every shade of green in the sunlight, in candlelight, in the dark. Sebastian. His face was fierce with concentration, his hair floating around his head like a dark halo. One arm locked around her waist, the other cut through the water in powerful strokes. His legs kicked beneath them, propelling them both upward. He hadn't died in the explosion. He was here. He was real. They broke through together. Aria gasped, choking on salt water and air at the same time. Her lungs burned like someone had poured fire down her throat. Her shoulder screamed. She coughed, water streaming from her mouth and nose, her body trying to expel the sea and breathe at the same time. Sebastian. She couldn't get enough air. Her thoughts scattered like dropped coins. I thought you were dead. The house, Luigi shot me. He was with them. Breathe. Sebastian held her against his chest, treading water. His voice was steady, calm, cutting through her panic. I'm here. Everything went according to plan. Just breathe, Bella. Her head spun. She turned in his arms, scanning the darkness. In the distance, the main house burned like a funeral pyre, flames licking toward a black sky. Further out on the water, the yacht, the Lamberti yacht, was also on fire, listing to one side as it took on water. What? Sebastian pulled her toward something bobbed nearby. A Zodiac raft, small and black, tethered to the motorboat. He hauled her over the side, then climbed in after her. His hands were gentle as he laid her flat on the floor. Am I dying? The words came out small, childlike. Sebastian's mouth curved, not the arrogant look from their first meeting, something softer. No, love, he shot you with a blank. No real bullet, but it can still burn you at close range. Might hurt like hell for a few days, but you're not dying. He pulled her jacket aside, examining her shoulder. The fabric was scorched, her skin beneath it red and angry. A shallow graze ran along the muscle, already purpling at the edges. See? He touched the wound carefully. Grazed you. Bruised. It'll ache for a while, but you're okay. Arya stared at him. Nothing made sense. What's happening, Sebastian? I don't understand. He moved to the outboard motor, yanking the cord. The Zodiac roared to life. I couldn't drag you into this life, Bella. His voice came rough, barely audible over the engine. I love you too much to throw you into the fire. So I'm sending you home, but everyone has to believe you're dead. The raft picked up speed, cutting through dark water. When they'd put enough distance between themselves and the burning cottage, Sebastian pulled something from his jacket, a remote detonator. He pressed the button. The small motorboat tied to the cottage dock exploded. Orange flame bloomed against the night, debris raining into the water. Orange flame bloomed against the night, debris raining into the sea. Arya watched the Venti house burning in the distance, watched the yacht sinking, watched her boat disintegrate. The images seared themselves into her memory like brands. Sebastian steered toward a different cove entirely. As they moved through the darkness, he explained, the plan changed at the last minute. He kept his eyes on the water ahead. Only Luigi and I knew. Everyone else, Margarita, Alfonso, Vince, all of them, they have to believe you're dead. Even them. The fewer people who know the truth, the safer you are. Arya's thoughts moved slowly, still catching up. Why? Diego's men were watching. So were the Lambertis. Sebastian's jaw tightened. They saw Luigi shoot you, saw you fall into the water. They think he's one of them now, which means he can work for me from the inside. The logic clicked into place piece by piece. You're sending him undercover. He's already there. The 2 survivors from tonight's attack, I let them escape. They'll report back that the Ventis are finished, that you're dead, that Luigi switched sides. Sebastian glanced at her. Meanwhile, you disappear. New identity. New life. Safe. Anger flared through her shock. Her hands clenched into fists. How could you not tell me this plan? Her voice came out sharper than she intended. I thought I was dying, Sebastian. I thought... Her throat closed around the words. You let me believe I was going to die. Sebastian's expression tightened, but he didn't look away from the water. If you'd known, you wouldn't have sold it. Diego's men were watching. They needed to see real fear. Real death. His voice dropped. I'm sorry, Bella, but it had to look real. Arya blinked, trying to process everything. So, what happens now? She watched his profile in the darkness. What are you going to do? Sebastian turned his gaze toward the shore, where a car sat waiting in the shadows. Now, Bella, as someone risen from the ashes, I've made Diego and the Lambertis think twice about coming for me. Of the men they sent tonight, only 2 walked away, because I allowed it. He looked back at her. I've placed Luigi exactly where I need him. I've secured your safety. Now I go back to work, back to Sicily, back to my life. The Zodiac's engine cut as they approached the shore. Arya could hear another sound now, the distinctive thrum of helicopter blades. Sebastian's expression hardened. Now I go back to my life. Disappointment crashed through her, followed by something sharper, disbelief. She stared at him, her face unable to hide what she felt. What about us? His expression turned grave. Sebastian's throat worked. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, deliberate. Love requires sacrifice, doesn't it? His eyes held something that looked like pain. I have to give you up to keep you safe. Hardest decision I've ever made. The raft scraped against rock. Sebastian jumped out, pulling them to shore. The helicopter sat 30 yards away, rotors spinning, ready for immediate takeoff. He nodded toward it. 20 minutes to the airport. Then he reached into a waterproof bag, stowed in the Zodiac. He pulled out a passport wrapped in plastic. Your name is Bella Adoretti, Italian-American. There's 50 million in an account under that name. Anger flashed across her face. Her hands shook as she took the passport. I don't want your money. It's not mine. His eyes held hers. It's yours, from the house, from your mother. Elora would have wanted you to have it. She would have wanted you out of this world, safe, with the means to build whatever life you choose. Tears blurred her vision. She blinked them back, furious with herself. So you had everything planned, every detail. Her voice broke. Did you ever really love me? Or was I just another piece you moved around the board? Sebastian's face crumpled. In one swift movement he pulled her against him and kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her mouth. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. If I didn't love you this much, his voice cracked. If I loved you any less, you'd be coming with me to Sicily right now. But I do love you, which means I can't let you burn. I should have had a say. Aria's hands fisted in his jacket, holding on even as she knew she had to let go. This isn't just your decision. You can't just... This time you would have chosen with your heart. He caught her wrists, gentle but firm, peeling her fingers away from the fabric. Someone needed to think with their head. Someone needed to choose what's best for you, even if it destroys me to do it. A man jogged toward them from the helicopter, his silhouette sharp against the rotating blades. Miss Adoretti, we need to leave, now. The name didn't register at first. Miss Adoretti, Bella Adoretti, not Aria Venti, not anymore. She'd spent 2 weeks discovering who she really was, peeling back layers she'd built to survive her mother's world. She'd found her mother's roots, her own strength, a man who saw past every wall she'd ever constructed, and now he was sending her back, alone, under a name that wasn't hers. Sebastian stepped back. Water sloshed between them, cold and final, creating distance, building the wall that would separate them. Sebastian, you have to go. His voice came out rough, scraped raw. Please, Bella, don't make this harder than it already is. Her throat closed. She wanted to scream, to argue, to refuse to move. But his eyes held hers, and she saw the truth there. He'd made his choice. He'd already let her go. The hardest part was that she understood why. She climbed out of the Zodiac, her legs unsteady on the wet rocks. A man jogged toward them from the helicopter, his movements quick and professional. Miss Adoretti, we need to leave, now. She looked back at Sebastian, still standing in the raft, water lapping at the sides. The burning house cast orange light across half his face, leaving the other half in shadow. He looked like something carved from marble and fire, beautiful, unreachable, already becoming a memory. I'll never see you again, will I? Something broke in his expression. His mouth curved at the corner, not mocking, not arrogant, broken. I love you, Aria. Not an answer. A goodbye. Her heart twisted, a physical ache spreading through her chest. She turned toward the helicopter, each step feeling like tearing off a piece of herself. Sand gave way to rock. Rock gave way to the metal step. The man helped her inside with efficient hands, and she buckled into the seat with fingers that had gone numb. The rotors picked up speed. The helicopter lifted. Aria pressed her face to the window, her breath fogging the glass. Sebastian stood on the shore, head tilted back, watching her rise into the night sky. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched, hands at his sides, as the distance between them grew. His face grew smaller. The burning house grew smaller. The whole terrible, beautiful 2 weeks condensed into a single point of light, then vanished into darkness. She closed her eyes, but the image was already burned into her memory. Sebastian looking up at her from the shore, surrounded by the ashes of everything they'd built, everything they'd lost, everything they couldn't keep. That image would replay. In her mind, every night for a year, every single night she would see him standing there. Every single night she would remember the man she loved, letting her go. Aria Ellis returned to the United States with an Italian passport that read Bella Adoretti and an American driver's license with her real name. 2 identities, neither felt quite right anymore. It had been a full year now, 12 months since she'd walked through customs at Detroit Metro, heart in her throat, waiting for someone to stop her, to ask questions she couldn't answer, to expose the life she'd lived for 2 weeks in a country that now felt more like fever dream than memory. No one stopped her, no one asked. And in the year that followed, no one called, not Sebastian, not Margarita, not Alfonso, no phone calls, no emails, no messages slipped under her door in the middle of the night, nothing. Italy became something she'd invented. A story she'd told herself. The stone house in Scario, the garden where she'd nearly fallen, the man with green eyes who'd caught her, all of it dissolving into the same hazy unreality as childhood fairy tales. Except for one thing. Every single night before sleep took her, the same ritual. She'd close her eyes and feel it again. Sebastian's mouth on hers, his hands cradling her face, that last kiss on the shore while helicopter blades beat the air and salt water dripped between them, the taste of ocean and desperation, the way his fingers had threaded through her wet hair like he was trying to memorize the feeling. It hurt, every time, a wound that refused to heal because she kept pressing on it. But she couldn't stop. 5 months after returning, she opened her own practice. The clinic sat in the heart of Detroit, 10 floors up with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city she'd grown up in. Her city, the one she'd come back to claim. Her patients told her their stories, breakups, divorces, affairs that ended badly, love that turned sour or simply faded into indifference. She listened with her therapist face on, took careful notes, asked the right questions, and every single session carved another hollow place inside her chest. That evening, Aria sat at her desk, watching the sun bleed orange across the Detroit skyline. Her last appointment of the day. She rolled her shoulders, trying to shake the familiar ache that settled there. Her mind drifted to that first day in Scario, the moment she'd nearly fallen in the garden, his eyes meeting hers. She whispered to herself, the words barely audible over the hum of traffic below. Aria, it was just a dream. You can't spend your life stuck in dreams. The intercom crackled. Dr. Ellis? Pam's voice came through cheerful and efficient. Your last patient is here, Mr. Benedict. Aria reached for her notebook, flipping to a fresh page, pen poised, professional mask sliding into place. Full name? A pause. Then Pam's voice dropped to that conspiratorial whisper she used when she thought someone was particularly attractive. Nicholas Benedict. 37. Very well-dressed gentleman. Another pause. He wrote grief and loss as his reason for seeking therapy. Aria's mouth curved despite herself. Pam's little previews had become part of the routine, something human in the clinical space. Okay, send him in. She stood, smoothing her skirt. She took 3 steps toward the center of the room where she always positioned herself to greet new patients. A ritual. Grounding. You're a professional, Aria. The moment that door opens, your life stays outside this room. Whatever you're carrying, you leave it at the threshold. The door opened. Polished leather shoes appeared first, Italian by the look of them, expensive in that quiet way that didn't need logos. Then linen pants, perfectly pressed, a tailored jacket that probably cost more than her first month's rent. Her gaze climbed. The world stopped. Green eyes met hers across the room, sharp, familiar, impossible. He closed the door behind him without looking away. The lock clicked. That smile at the corner of his mouth, subtle, knowing, devastating. His skin still carried that bronze tone, like he'd spent the year somewhere warm. The scent of him filled her office, salt and cedar and something darker underneath, ocean and earth. Bella. The word fell from his lips rough and low, soaked in longing. Aria's mouth opened. No sound came out. Her heart slammed against her ribs, trying to break through bone. Sebastian Bianco. The man who'd haunted every stray thought for 12 months. The man whose last kiss she'd replayed every single night before sleep finally took mercy on her. The man she'd loved, still loved, would probably always love. The love of her life, standing in her office like he'd materialized from her own desperate imagination. He closed half the distance between them in 2 steps. Aria. Her name came out like prayer, like confession. His head shook slowly, eyes tracking over her face with something close to wonder. You look incredible. The spell broke. Her hand moved before conscious thought caught up. The slap cracked across his face, sharp enough to turn his head. Fire blazed behind her eyes when she spoke. Nicholas Benedict? Sebastian moved fast. One hand caught her wrist, the other wrapped around her waist, yanking her against him. Then his mouth crashed into hers, not gentle, not asking permission, just taking. For half a second, shock held her frozen. Then her body remembered. Every cell igniting at once, muscle memory stronger than reason. She felt it immediately. The year apart had done nothing to dampen the intensity between them. If anything, the separation had concentrated it into something more potent, more dangerous. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Aria, my love, I missed you so much." He kissed her again, softer this time, reverent and tender. "I couldn't come to you until I eliminated every threat." His voice carried an edge of something raw, almost broken, "until you were completely safe." Aria's hands found his chest, feeling the solid reality of him beneath expensive fabric. She pressed her face against his shirt and breathed him in. Home. He smelled like home. And now, Sebastian's arms tightened around her. "Now I want my wife beside me. I'm never letting you out of my sight again." She tilted her head back, meeting his eyes. Anger and relief and love tangled together until she couldn't tell where one ended and another began. "An entire year, Sebastian." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "A whole year passed. How do you know I didn't move on? That I didn't find someone else?" His mouth curved into that arrogant smile she'd fallen for in a garden in Scario, the one that made her want to slap him and kiss him in equal measure. Every morning, his lips found her neck, pressing soft kisses between words. "You leave your apartment at 8:30. He kissed the hollow of her throat. "You eat lunch at your desk, usually a salad or sandwich." Another kiss, higher, near her jaw. "You still can't pick decent wine. That bottle you bought yesterday probably gave you a headache." His mouth grazed her jawline. "2 months ago, someone set you up with that guy from the hospital. You went to dinner." His eyes lifted to meet hers, satisfaction gleaming there. "But I could tell from the way you looked at him that you weren't interested." Aria shoved against his chest, putting space between them even as her skin protested the loss of contact. "You had me followed? This whole time? Did you really think—" Sebastian closed the distance she'd created. "That I wouldn't protect you, even from here? You couldn't send one message?" Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. "Just to let me know you were alive? That would have been enough." His fingers threaded through her hair, gentle and grounding. "You think it was easy for me? Looking at photographs, watching surveillance footage, seeing you but never touching you, hearing about your day second-hand instead of from your own voice?" His forehead pressed against hers. "But it's over now. The Lambertis are finished. Diego's dead. No one left who can hurt you. For now." Aria blinked. "For now? We're together." His thumb traced her lower lip. "I'm here, with you, to build our family." His eyes held hers with absolute certainty. "And to run the clan from here." "Like Elora Venti," she whispered. "Exactly, like Elora Venti." The truth of it settled over her. This was her mother's life. The one Elora had hidden so carefully. The one Aria had inherited whether she wanted it or not. "What if I don't want this?" But even as she asked, her body betrayed her, leaning into him, craving his touch, already surrendering. Sebastian smiled, that knowing look that said he could read every conflicted emotion on her face. "Your body's telling a different story, Bella." His fingers brushed across her mouth. Then his palm settled over her heart, feeling it race beneath her ribs. "Everything about you says you want me. Your pulse, your breathing, the way you lean toward me even when you're trying to stay angry." Aria reached up and pulled his mouth back to hers, kissing him with a year's worth of longing and fury and desperate aching love. When they finally broke apart, she managed words. "So, what happens now, Mr. Nicholas Benedict?" His smile turned wicked, playful and dark all at once. "Now, my love, my wife." He paused, letting anticipation build. "First, we have a proper wedding. The kind you deserve, not a rushed ceremony with a terrified official and armed guards." His hand moved to her stomach, palm spreading wide and possessive over fabric. "Then we buy a house. Wherever you want. Your choice." Heat blazed in his eyes as he looked at her. "And then we raise our children." His voice dropped lower, intimate and charged. "But first, we should probably start working on that right away." Arya grabbed his tie, yanking him down to her level. No fake names. Sebastian's smile was immediate. Deal. We live where I choose. He nodded without hesitation. Agreed. You keep the business away from our family, nothing that puts them in danger. His expression turned serious. Of course. Arya's fingers tightened in the silk of his tie, pulling him close enough that their breath mingled. And if you ever leave me again, her eyes held his without blinking, I'll kill you myself. Sebastian's arms wrapped around her, crushing her against his chest. I will never keep myself away from you again, Bella. Never. He lifted her off the ground. She wrapped her legs around his waist on instinct, their bodies fitting together like the year apart had been nothing but a brief intermission. Sebastian, she tried for stern. It came out breathless. This is my office. He carried her toward the leather couch by the window, that devastating smile playing at his mouth. Aren't we supposed to be working on your grief and loss, Dr. Venti? His eyes gleamed with mischief and heat. We shouldn't waste any time. The last of the Detroit sunlight painted them in gold as he lowered her down. Outside, the city moved on. Cars honked, people rushed home. The world kept turning. But in that office, time stopped. Sebastian's mouth found hers again, slower this time, deeper, a promise and a claim and a homecoming all at once. Arya's hands slid into his hair, pulling him closer. 12 months of separation, 12 months of phantom kisses and memory-worn touches, 12 months of trying to convince herself she could build a life without this man. All of it dissolved. She'd left her heart in Scario, but Sebastian Bianco had crossed an ocean to bring it back, and this time, she wasn't letting go. Thank you for staying till the end. Where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if Arya and Sebastian's story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me. Now, I need to ask you something. Do you know that feeling when your heart wants something your brain knows is dangerous? When every logical part of you screams stop, but you can't? Have you ever fallen so deeply in love that you lost all control, even when logic told you to run? Yes or no? Please tell me in the comments.